No words
fucking
on what?
thing.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today we have a show for you, gang. Recently, Jordan Peterson sued the institutions of Canada, claiming that they were violating his freedom of expression. They had required him to take a social media training course in order to keep his license, and he said that that violated his rights. He lost the case and was ordered to pay $25,000 to the institutions which he sued. The question, though, is should he have? What rights do colleges and other institutions have to dictate the way we phrase our opinions on our private time? Should they be able to dictate what we do or say outside of the workspace, and to what extent? We're going to talk about all that and more as we go into it today, and I've assembled a lovely team with us today, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves and also give opening thoughts on the subject. Try to be as concise as you can, and we are going to start off today with our friend Lonerbox. Hello.
Yeah, I think when someone joins a profession that is regulated and when they are certified by a group like the College of Psychologists, they are necessarily investing some of their reputation in you, in your behavior, especially if you go around carrying your title that they gave you as you gave opinions online. Like Pearson had clinical psychologist in his Twitter. He introduced himself that way on Joe Rogan. He is representing them in some capacity. It's within their purview to say that there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't. I don't really see what's wrong with that. It's a very common thing. It's not a Canada-specific thing either. I know that, for example, like the NBA got someone in trouble and suspended him for 25 games because he went on Instagram and showed pictures of him holding a gun. Nothing illegal about that. But if you're going to be representing someone and you are like one of the faces of this organization, then it's okay, I think, for them to put some expectations on you. So, yeah.
Thanks for being here. Get into it as we go. Next up, PFJung.
Yes, hello. I think that I agree. I agree with Lonerbox that if you're a psychologist, you submit to the regulations of the regulating body. But I think it's ridiculous that the regulating body is regulating things that have nothing to do with the quality of the services offered, which is the entire purpose of the Ontario College of Psychologists. I think directly from their website, the purpose of the regulatory body, through the participation of the public and the profession, the college ensures the delivery of competent, ethical, and professional psychological services from qualified providers. That's the purpose of the college. Not a single one of the complaints against Peterson is from a client or has anything to do with his individual services. I wouldn't agree at all that being a licensed psychologist means you're the face of the Ontario College of Psychologists. Their job is to regulate you. So that's like saying, well, if you have a restaurant, you're the face of the FDA because the FDA regulates you. It's like, no, it's not. Their job is to specifically regulate the delivery of services, and this has nothing to do with that. There's absolutely no reason that a regulatory board should be deciding whether or not tweets about, of a political nature should warrant Peterson losing his license. I think that is far beyond their purview, and I hope that we can discuss it.
We will. I promise you. I don't know how productive the discussion will be, but we'll try. We'll get into
Always
it.
productive. Wick.
Next up, Vivian. Hello.
Yeah, what's up? I mean, okay, so it's difficult to disagree with Lonerbox. So I don't really have a huge amount to add on top of that, except that like Jordan Peterson himself has said that he was acting in his professional capacity, right? That his professional capacity is now much broader. So I disagree with the framing that you gave at the start of like people doing stuff outside of their workplace or unconnected to their workplace. And also I'd point out that this is there's a difference between a licensed profession and like a retail outlet or a fucking restaurant or whatever. Anyway, sorry. That'll do. I'll get into it more later.
No need to apologize. Spice is good. Thank you, Vivian. It's been a while, and we're glad to have you back.
Oh, also, I'm Vivian, and if you don't know who I am, you're a fucking idiot.
Fair enough. Next up, we have Red, a first-time guest on my channel. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Red. I think I disagree. First off, let me preface this because I don't want to defend Peterson too much. I disagree with basically like 95% of what that comes out of that man's mouth. But I do think that he does say that he's acting as a clinical psychologist while he's like acting in these social media spaces or doing these talks or whatever. I think the question really comes down to of how much do we want to tone police or challenge framing of our professionals while they're working, because I've been through the entire report, the entire court decision, and it doesn't seem to be about the subject matter of what he's saying, but more about the tone and how he frames his arguments. If that's the main basis that they're basing their decision on, I don't agree with it at all. I think it actually excludes a lot of people from conversations like this once you start trying to control how they're saying things. So I don't like our institutions trying to control things in that way. I think there's also like Jordan Peterson could be specifically like playing a persona. I don't know if he's smart enough to do that, but playing a persona to capture certain audiences and putting restrictions on how he can talk will inhibit that.
Okay, and with that, we'll get into it. The floor is open. If you have trouble getting in, raise your hand or your paw, as the case may be, and I will try to slot you in as we go. But yeah, I guess this is the crux of the disagreement here.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
the main part of the college of psychologist's argument is essentially that he's bringing the reputation of the profession into disrepute, which would naturally preclude some people from being able to seek the psychological help and treatment that they need. So I think that's probably a really good place to start, given that PF seems to think that like his actions outside of the workplace don't have any implication on his ability to do his job.
I did not say that his actions outside the workplace have any implications on his job. First off, he's not none of the complaints lodged against him have anything to do with the quality of the services he delivered. Do we all agree on that?
No, because he's saying that he's operating.
Yes or no?
No, I agree, but I just want to ask. Sorry, you go as well, Viv. I'll go after.
Yeah, no worries. So he said that he's operating in his professional capacity. That was one of his responses to the initial complaint, right? When he was told he'd have to go for this remedial course. He said, I actually have these things in place and I'm operating in a much broader sense now, not with personal patients, but essentially treating millions through my appearances on places.
Right, so not services. Right. So not services.
That is a service that he's now operating, right? He's operating.
No, it's not a service.
He's operating in his professional capacity. I am a clinical psychologist. This is my advice to you, right?
Yeah, right. And none of the advice he has put forward in his capacity as a clinical psychologist. I mean, the number one criticism or anytime I talk to people who criticize Jordan Peterson, they start off by saying, I don't really have any issue with his psychological advice. At worst, it's banal and generic. Clean your room. So there's no psychological advice or service, which isn't a service because he's not.
I have significant issues with that. He told a depressed person to kill themselves on social media. That was one of the.
No, can I get a source on that? I don't.
Yeah,
that was in the complaint.
He said I can say exactly what the suicide tweet was. I remember that one.
The inquiry said this was a joke. They threw that complaint out.
Yes, exactly.
Whether or not he's operating a professional capacity when he makes those tweets is completely irrelevant. The code and standards that he has to follow, that he signs up to when he gets that certification, is the requirement that members not engage publicly in degrading comments about others, including demeaning jokes, based on such characteristics as culture, nationality, etc. And Pearson himself took no issue with the principles in the code. So unless you think that code's unreasonable, that it should change, Peterson disagrees with you. He just contests that he's done everything he needs to behave properly in the future.
Hold on. Are you reading directly from the code of the Ontario?
This is from the court documents, section 41.
Just real quick, Vivian, you're stuttering with the static mic.
Fuck, sorry. I'll fix that. Give me a sec. Sorry, it's just very hot here, so I've got my fan on.
I
But
understand.
I'll try and fix it.
Well, it's a far more relevant conversation, I think, as to whether or not the college has a right to silent or revoke Peterson's license for engaging in political speech. Whether or not it happens to be part of the standards, I think that's what's in dispute. The question is whether it should be in the standards. Obviously, the Ontario College believes they're acting in accordance with their own standards. Hence, why they're bringing the it's not an indictment. Hence, why they're bringing the complaint or the action against Peterson. The question is, should any reasonable person agree that it is the the Ontario College of Psychologists' responsibility to regulate an individual's political speech when it has nothing to do with the quality of the services delivered?
It's not just about political speech. It was about demeaning. It was degrading others and demeaning jokes. Like, it's literally just like they're saying that if we're going to entrust you by calling you a clinical psychologist and certifying you, don't be mean in public. That's basically what they're saying.
So let's explore that. So let's explore that. If a licensed psychologist makes any joke on Twitter demeaning someone, should they have their license revoked? According to
obviously,
your
there's a
standards?
threshold. That's why they threw out some of the jokes.
The threshold is what I just brought up as what we should discuss. I think the threshold clearly should be way lower or way higher than it is right now in terms of what benefit, why even regulate that? Why the purpose of the
that's kind
regulatory
of what I
board
think.
is
You don't think there
regulate
should be a
services.
I don't
You
think
don't
it should be
think there should be
legislated.
It shouldn't be decided by a regulatory body. Absolutely not.
Why not? What the fuck is the point of the
especially-
regulatory body if not to regulate?
Especially
I wanna
not
make sure
one-
Red gets a space here. So
Who
Red,
else
sorry.
is it going to be decided by?
I
Other
just
than
want to say, I don't think it should be regulated, especially by a regulatory body that's basically like an extension of the Ontario government. I think that gets a little icky, and I don't think we need to legislate like what kind of speech our professionals use. It wasn't that long ago that like tattoos were considered crazy unprofessional. I know like calling someone a prick on Twitter is like a very big difference from that. But I think again, he's trying to appeal to a certain audience, and that audience is like lonely Twitter trolls. I think he's doing a great job of doing that, to be honest.
That's my MO is lonely Twitter troll. But I
It
agree.
was more that
Except
he
for that last part.
called the physician who did Elliot Page's surgery a criminal. I feel like
I agree. That tweet specifically, I think, does probably fall under hate speech under Bill C-16, and he of all people should understand that, considering that's how he rose to fame.
well, he rose to
I
fame
think
misrepresenting.
that one.
He clearly doesn't
Yeah,
understand it.
100% misrepresenting it like crazy. I agree 100%. But I do think,
don't think that's relevant, but-
if you reframe
Oh,
that tweet,
I
though,
think it's extraordinarily relevant.
if you reframe that tweet though to be like 100% okay, it doesn't change how horrible the subject matter of it is, and the college doesn't have a problem with the subject matter of what he's tweeting about, which
So-
they made
Yeah.
clear.
It's a moral question. Should a professional licensing body have the right to regulate someone's political speech, even if it's demeaning and insulting, which is kind of the definition of any real political speech?
Depending on your profession, yes. Because certain professions are there to provide vulnerable people with services to help them get out of the fucking shitty situation.
Okay, but do you think he... Okay.
Wait,
Give Vivian some space to finish. Go ahead.
Sure.
And if you bring that profession into significant disrepute, if you engage in behaviors that are like demeaning people, harassing them, etc., and that is the I don't know what we disagree on, but
under no circumstance has Jordan Peterson harassed individuals.
Okay, I mean I would disagree, but whatever, we can move on.
But that's the point. You and I disagree.
Demeaning is
who
enough.
adjudicates? That's fair.
I don't care who fucking adjudicates. We can argue it out after I've finished my fucking point. Okay, so
sorry, it's hard to read body language on a cat. My bad.
So if you need psychological, a vulnerable person who needs psychological, and your port of call, your understanding of the psychological profession is what you see of Jordan Peterson in public, you may well be less likely to seek psychological help. I know for fucking sure if you're a trans person and you see what fucking Jordan Peterson says about people, as that comment that Lonerbox referenced earlier about mutilation and criminal fucking doctor, right? If you see that, why the fuck would you go to a psychologist if you have any kind of mental health issue?
Is psychologist the only career where you see like one person do one thing and you apply that to the entire career though? Like if I see like if I hear Celine Dion sing, I don't think all singers sound like Celine Dion.
If you're a police officer and you're making racist statements out of work, then same fucking thing, right? Because you're supposed to treat people without fear or favor. So if you're displaying public bigotry, it undermines trust in the profession, right? There's a lot of professions in which this could apply. I don't think it applies to like a fucking retail store clerk, for example.
Okay,
right?
and I don't think it applies to a clinical psychologist in the way that he's trying to enact it on social media and YouTube.
So
he introduces himself as a clinical psychologist. He carries that label with him, and he's like representing the board.
No, I understand that. I'm not questioning that.
Can you elaborate, Red, on why you don't think a clinical psychologist should apply? The standard that Vivian has laid out, that she says should be the standard for certain public professionals, are that the way that they hold themselves, because they are a service to the public, and the public trust is in this profession has importance to society and to the government. Why should they not be held to some sort of standard on how they present their opinion, how they present their discussion?
Because it comes back to like the vulnerable people that he is trying to reach. Maybe there aren't people that would actually go to a psychologist anyways, and he's trying to reach them through the medium of the internet. He might have to use certain language to reach those people, and I think he's doing that very effectively. But I don't think he's for every person. Like, I don't think a trans person should go to Jordan Peterson to be their psychologist. Lots of people have to go through like a few different therapists or psychologists to find ones that jive with them and can relate to their life experiences. I think he's in a unique position in that he's very public facing and is like spread out across like all sorts of things. And that makes us judge him differently for that. But I don't know if it's necessarily a fair judgment to try to control him. And I think him being like mean, like I think what he's doing is trying to appeal to his like basically like, let's call it what it is, his incel lonely male fan base. And I think he does that well. And I think he probably does help some people. I meet lots of people who are like, Jordan Peterson helped me a lot. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to like validate that and then break down all the stupid stuff he says. That's really exceptionally stupid. But I think he's doing a good job of what he's trying to do, even if I don't like what he's trying to do.
I'm trying to keep this a little more organized than it has been. So no, it does make sense. So I want to give Lonerbox some space here, and then we're going to go to Viv, and then we're going to go to PFJung. So that's the order we're going to go in.
Yeah, just to be very frank about what he's doing here, right? Like he even said that his actions did need to be remediated. It's just that he didn't want to go through the process that they offered him. They offered him to go through a social media training program where he would be able to keep a certification if he just did the program. He just contested and he said, no, actually, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to surround myself with people I've chosen to monitor my social media behavior, which basically means he's clowning on them, right? Like he's just doing this for attention. But he himself has not contested the fact that his social media behavior was a problem and it needed to change. It's also, you're maybe downplaying, I think, the overlap between him advertising himself as a clinical psychologist and then making these statements. One of the things that they did pull him up on was that he introduced himself as a clinical psychologist on Joe Rogan and then described one of his former clients as vindictive. He disparaged a former client, which is pretty controversial as a... No, but he just named them and said they were vindictive. And he referred to their action. He also referred to their actions.
Wait, by name or no?
No, not by name, but he did say that this person had made false allegations against him.
Not a violation whatsoever.
It's a violation of their guidelines. Maybe not of like it's not malpractice, but their guidelines.
Because I'm not.
I mean,
just real quick, I have a question on this particularly. So, I didn't see the clip on Joe Rogan. So Lonerbox, it sounds like you did. So maybe you can help me out here. So, did he simply say that I had a client and this client was vindictive because they did X, Y, and Z, and
Yeah, they
didn't
made
really
false
elaborate, or was he more
accusations.
specific?
He said there were false allegations that he was exonerated from at college. But again, from the perspective of the people who certified him, they can say, well, it doesn't really look very good when a clinical psychologist is going on Joe Rogan and talking shit about one of their former clients. Like, for people who might be
So if
interested in seeing a
I-
psychologist.
If I'm a psychologist and I write a book and I bring up in one of the stories about a patient that I had a negative and I called them vindictive, not by name, never identified them once, that should be regulated by the Ontario College.
They might.
A therapist is not
context where you
allowed to
say
use
it.
a pseudonym to describe a prior experience with a patient. That's just absurd.
So this
Again,
was
None of the
allegations
complaints
right?
come from any of his clients.
Vivian,
They
we were
go
don't
just
ahead.
have to
talking-
come from his
I mean,
clients,
we
though.
were-
They can
so-
come from the
Well,
public.
the issue is the
So-
fact that none of them came from his clients is the issue at
Okay,
hand.
okay,
Because
no,
what
it's not
possible
the issue.
reason is the college regulating the professional services when they have nothing to do with the professional services offered.
Okay, so there have been
doesn't-
numerous complaints from clients, right? The client that he's fucking talking about here, like, lodged complaints against him. That's why they're calling
That were dismissed
why,
like 2 decades
why he's
ago,
calling him fucking vindictive, right?
which is irrelevant to this.
In addition, during Peterson's entire rise to fame or whatever, he fobbed off the majority of his fucking clients, right? Gave them huge fucking gaps in between appointments and eventually
Okay.
dropped them. And multiple of his clients then complained, right? Because he wasn't providing a satisfactory service because, quote, he had a lot going on Twitter, which is what he sent to one of them in one of his emails, right? Like, this is clearly, and he doesn't really take personal clients anymore. So the idea that, like, oh, he's advertising and getting people to come to him, that's not fucking happening either.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't take
Yeah.
personal clients anymore. So what the fuck, what does he
Right.
need
You're
a
making
fucking
my point.
license for anymore? Right? Like,
Because-
Just to
he's
come
not
back as well, sorry.
interested in responsibly performing clinical psychology, clearly.
I mean, he's definitely making a mountain out of a molehill on
wanna-
this. Like,
Yeah,
I'll agree with that.
I want to give Young some space here. Go ahead.
I mean, I think you made the point, Vivian. Absolutely none of these complaints have anything to do with the services that he's rendered because he has not seen clients for, I don't know, was it since 2016 or something like that? 7-8 years? And the job of the regulatory board of psychologists should be to regulate the quality of the services offered. It does not give them, it should not, by any stretch of the imagination, give them the power to adjudicate on whether or not a particular tweet or criticism that Peterson put forward happens to be ethical. Because why in God's name would we give that responsibility to a regulatory body instead of leaving it up to the public forum
To maintain the respectability and the reliability of the profession in the eyes of the public.
Well, you could just easily assert that
Yes.
this is undermining their reputation and reliability. The fact that they're censoring someone for political speech.
I mean, you can make
They're not
that
censoring someone for political speech, so they're not censoring him at all. He's still allowed to make his statements on Twitter. They're just saying, you can say this if you want. It's just that we've decided
Yes.
that it makes us look bad, and you don't disagree with that. He doesn't disagree with the code.
Yes, he does. I know you said that. Did you watch his half-hour response? You really think your position is Peterson doesn't disagree that he said
he can
anything
say whatever
wrong?
he wants
That's
in a
his
half-hour
entire thing.
response. He can say whatever he wants in a half-hour response. The court document said he didn't challenge the principles of the code.
Hold on. You quoted him and then said he was trolling them, correct?
When
Is
did I
that
say
what
he
you
was
just said?
trolling them?
You said he's clowning on them is what your words were?
I think he's
Meaning-
clowning them by
meaning-
carrying it on by saying that he's done, but he doesn't lie. Unless you think he's lied to them, unless you think he said that he just said he didn't contest the code. What? Because why would he do that? I can find you it's number 44 in the court document.
Is there a reason
Said he
that
doesn't
he
contest
might
the principles of the
have
code.
he might not have contest for example, I don't know the Canadian court system. I'm going to be real with you, but at least in the American court
does.
system, you can plead no contest to a thing. That does not mean
I mean,
you are
this isn't the
admitting fault or liability or admitting any truth to it. It's simply you were deciding.
So this isn't
not
the
to
court
contest.
system, Wick. This isn't the court. When he's basically saying that, like, he agrees that he's fucked up and he's taken steps to change it. that is in response to the college saying, we want you to take this remedial course. He's like, I'm already remedying the action. I'm surrounding myself with theologians and scholars and members of my family to help me regulate.
To his credit,
media.
Also, his YouTube comments.
he had that podcast with 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 and Jonathan 𝕵𝖔𝖎, and 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 basically spent an hour publicly telling him why Peterson was wrong. So you can say, oh, well, he's just doing it to clown on them or whatever, but it's like, well, by his estimation, he did surround himself with people who disagree with him, and, that's fine. So again, all of this is like, what, again, the broader question, the question at hand is here, why would we cede the ability to determine what constitutes ethical political speech to a regulatory board who's supposed to regulate
I don't know how many times
services.
you have to keep disingenuously saying political speech when it's been pointed out to you both by myself and disingenuous, right? As in,
I'm genuous.
The complaints were not about political speech. They were about him.
In repeated
points
about
the concept. The word they kept using were inflammatory, degrading. It wasn't about political speech.
Yeah, it was very clear that the subject matter is fine.
Opinions.
Yeah. It's very clear that it's not
Okay,
about,
fair enough. Perhaps I'm using political speech too broadly. What I mean is
Well, no, because you want to frame it as conservative censorship, and I understand that, right? Like, conservatives are ever wanting to portray themselves as the victims of this, even when the vast majority of mainstream media and
Only
social media
conservatives do that.
platforms actually cater to them to an incredible degree.
Okay, so
But this is not him being
about
censored. This is not him being censored for political speech. So unless you want to contest that point,
I am
right?
contesting
And you
that.
think it
So,
is
for
him
example-
being censored for political speech.
So
Give
for
us
example,
give us the example of him being censored for political speech. In your
well, hold on.
opinion,
Yes, obviously censorship. I'm talking about censorship in practice, meaning if you say this, we're going to revoke your license. Now, that's not literal censorship anymore, though. I could put you in a box
Sure.
and allow you to shout whatever you want. Technically,
We're
I'm not
fine with the
censoring you.
censorship thing at the moment, right? It's the political speech
Can
thing.
you give us
that we
the
have
political?
a
Yeah,
difference.
just give us the example that you would like to use.
Right.
we
So,
can
like when
discuss
Peterson
it.
said 𝕾𝖎𝖙 in the criminal physician line,
Uh-huh.
I'm calling that political speech, and I'm willing to change how we argue it for stipulative purposes in this conversation. What should we describe that level of speech? Because it's not he's not
Okay,
making
so
like pseudo.
the point is,
Hold on.
Let,
He's
just,
not
let,
making.
just give Young a chance to elaborate on this because I'm curious.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the reason, okay, and fair enough, we can use a different term. I'm trying to distinguish between specific scientific psychological claims. Like, for example, if he said, I don't know, phrenology is a proper way to conduct psychotherapy, then you have a case to go, okay, this is bullshit, you can't say this is nonsense. So we call that, I don't know, psychological speech or professional speech or whatever, and then I'm just referring to everything else, the political opinions, the inflammatory tweets as political speech. How do you guys want to differentiate? What terms do we want to use to differentiate those two?
I mean, it sounds kind of defamatory almost, isn't it? I mean, they said it was inflammatory. That's what they said.
The point that the college would make, right, is that like Peterson clearly has this view about trans people, that the internationally recognized best practices of treatment are not good, that they don't work for transgender people, or they shouldn't be used.
Which many people contend that, yes, and that's an open discussion.
Many people do contend that. Many people are fucking stupid. But
it's true.
Regardless,
those two statements are true.
Regardless, he is allowed to hold this view. He's allowed to
Absolutely.
express this view, right? He is not allowed to defame another physician as being a criminal on social media. Now, this is the difference between him being censored for his political views, right, and being censored for using demeaning, degrading, harassing, whatever you want to call it, speech. And I would contend that calling somebody a criminal to your legions of fucking fans is an example of harassment, in fact.
If instead of calling him a criminal, what if you just called him immoral?
I mean,
because he doesn't believe it's a moral action.
I guess we would have to see what the court said if he said immoral, but he didn't.
What do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, but like, I mean, we're not actually like here trying Peterson.
I think
not everything criminal.
I think there are clinical psychologists who signed up to say, right, in the fucking code of practices that you will promote best practice and best conduct right? And you won't use pseudoscientific or bullshit fucking claims around the treatment of individuals, that actually opposing the affirmative model for transgender healthcare in public would be enough to disqualify you as a practicing physician.
Right.
Now,
That is the issue,
college
because
dis-
that is
college
the
disagree with
crux of
me,
the issue.
but the college
Because that's
disagree
insane.
with the college would disagree with me. Well, no, it's not insane,
It is
because
insane.
if you're a doctor and you say, "Hey, I don't think that you should have this all the available cancer treatments. What you should do is you should go see a fucking guru in India and do a little yoga to get over it."
This has nothing to do with it.
Right? It
There are plenty of
absolutely,
countries.
it absolutely does,
there are
because
plenty-
what Jordan Peterson recommends for transgender people is conversion therapy. You recognize
What's that?
like torturous and sorry. What do you mean? What?
Hold on. What you said? What specifically has Peterson recommended for trans people?
He recommends and signed up to a list of what did they fucking call them at the time? Explorative therapists, I think was the
Right, so not gender
was the
affirming care.
thing that
So
they
if
use.
right, so for
Right?
example, if a 13-year-old
Right, but
child, hold on, let me
explorative-
finish, because
No, because
I'm
explorative therapist is a euphemism essentially for conversion therapy.
conversion
right?
therapy is a euphemism for affirming a child
for
that has no
abuse.
business being affirmed.
What?
Okay,
I mean,
I
that's
don't.
your
I don't.
opinion,
I
but
don't.
that's not- that's
Okay,
not
no,
what the medical
no,
profession would
this
say.
isn't going to become a
Hold,
trans
yeah,
debate.
no, hold, let me defend myself here.
Okay.
How many
Briefly, but I want to
countries
make.
have? How
I
many
just
countries?
No,
let
it's
me
fine.
say
If
this.
you wanna-
Hey,
it's
stop this.
fine. You can
Let
take the
me
position
say
you
this.
wanna talk to
Let
children,
me
and we
say
can move
that.
on.
Stop.
okay.
Stop. Let me say this. I'll allow this back and forth. But the point of the panel is free speech and censorship and colleges.
And you're censoring us
DEI.
right now.
If we go into the trans stuff, okay. Go ahead, Young.
Sure.
Can we-
Okay,
can we move it?
hold on. Let me defend myself, and then we can move this back. Plenty of Scandinavian countries, least of which Sweden, has banned the use of puberty blockers
This is
outside of
incorrect.
hyper-experimental. Yes, it is.
This is
No,
incorrect.
it is absolutely the case.
No, it's not. That is
It is the case.
false, and it's
It is the
something
case.
that's
So
been spread
it's
a lot
perfectly
around
reasonable. The
right-wing
purpose is
circles. But no, Sweden has not banned affirmative care for minors.
it is absolutely the case. Do you
No,
wanna
it is
pull up
not
on-
true.
Can I
You've
pull
just
it up
been
on
told
screen?
that by some dumb fuck right-wing media company, and you need to look into it and see whether or not children are still being prescribed puberty blockers in Sweden, because they are.
That's wrong.
Someone just
Okay.
could we just look it up?
Go
if
ahead.
you
Go
guys
ahead.
want
Yeah,
to?
go ahead. Give me 3 minutes. I'll pull it up.
Okay.
And while you guys are doing that, can I
Move
come
on.
back to the thing about
Please, for the
the
love
thing
of
about
God,
the comment that he made
Go
on
ahead.
the comment that he made on Joe Rogan? Like, I don't really see. So, I think the term for it is privileged communication, which means you can speak about patients, but what you can't do is give any information that might make them identifiable. He said the college that he was exonerated from, and he said that there were false accusations. So he did say things that might have made it easier to identify them. And also, there's a difference between describing a patient's symptoms and some problems with them, and just calling them vindictive, which was he was attacking the person. So. Yeah, I think it's probably okay if you're a regulated health professional and you see one of your people that you've certified attacking a patient. Yeah, of course you should be a bit concerned about that. I don't see what the
That's
problem is with that.
laughable. The patient.
Why is it laughable?
Because the patient accused him. He said he was playing with his. Do you know what he was said on Joe Rogan? You're suggesting that this was sufficient.
If I remember correctly, the person said that she felt that he had abandoned her when he closed his practice. I think it was like the big thing that he was in trouble for.
It was referring to how he was playing with his ring. Do you recall?
No, I don't remember that bit. No.
The patient, Jordan Peterson, which if you ever watch him speak, will take his ring and like play with it, his wedding ring, and he was doing that in the middle of his session with this patient, and the patient took that as a he's coming on to me by like playing with his wedding ring. That's what she accused him of. The college threw that out, and of course, I would say that's a false allegation and it's vindictive, and he has every right to say that it is. And to suggest that him saying, without ever identifying the person, that was a bullshit claim should therefore warrant judgment or warrant disciplinary action on the part of the regulators is absurd.
So maybe they do things differently in Canada, but I think privileged communication usually means regardless of because if you're a therapist or a psychologist, regardless of what a patient has done, you're not supposed to attack them in public, especially on that Joe Rogan podcast. But yeah.
What I'm trying to get at is that an attack? Because I've read a lot of books, mostly non-psychology books, but there are other professions who've written memoirs, who've written autobiographies, and basically told stories about patients they've had, about experiences they've had in their professional lives with people who've come. They don't name the person, but they tell the story, right? They say, I met with one of my constituents who had very big concerns about this issue, and I helped them see their way through it, or they got very mad at me. You know, the stories vary. But I don't know if I would say that simply explaining a story like that is an attack on someone.
It's when you do something. It's when you do it in a way that also makes it makes them identifiable. And this is someone who sued him, right? So
I would like to
we're trying
close the
sue
loop
him.
on what just happened. Wick, can you please share your screen on the link I just sent you? And then we can move on from this
Is this the Sweden thing?
claim.
Well, I don't know if I will try to share my screen on it. I will read it out. England limits use of puberty blocking drugs to research only. This is
What's
published
the-
June
that's
9th,
here in the UK.
2023.
Right. So
That's
what's
here in the
the
UK and
source?
children
Wait, what's
have
the source? That
It's
wait,
the New
Vivian
York
said this is
Times.
bullshit.
The
Right.
New
Vivian
York
said it's
Times.
right-wing bullshit that puberty blockers are no longer being prescribed in gender affirmation care. It's to research only. So unless you are enrolled in specific research purposes, you do not get puberty blockers in England.
And
Okay,
Joe,
but
Exactly
there are
what I
national-
said was the case. Exactly what I said was the case.
okay, but there
Joe
are-
Themic
okay,
for $2
okay, but
says
there are
Wick
To
and
be
Young are
fair-
completely in the right here.
To be fair,
but
in
there are
Sweden, it's halted
but there
except
are
for rare cases. It's still allowed for rare cases in Sweden, but that's the case generally. It's not very
allowed for
common
rare-
anyway when kids
allowed
get
for
puberty
It's
rare
blockers.
not a
cases.
gender affirming care. I
And
said a 13-year-old
it's
child has no
allowed
business
for
being
rare
affirmed
cases.
out. And I'll add the
I
asterisk.
don't know what you think. I
If
don't know
they're
what you think
enrolled in
affirmed
some sort of
means.
You
research
guys are
trial,
talking
fine.
over
I don't
each
know-
other,
I
and you
don't-
got to
I
stop
don't-
talking over each other because we can't hear
Well, yeah,
either one of
because
you. Okay?
So one, I don't know what you think
Go
the
ahead, and I'll
affirmative model
respond.
means, right? The affirmative model doesn't necessarily mean puberty blockers, for starters.
But
right?
denying puberty blockers would not be affirming.
I mean, that depends on the state of the individual child. Like, puberty blockers are not like, oh, if you do affirmative care, you must put this child on puberty blockers, right?
No, but
Anyway,
if a child requests puberty blockers and you
regardless-
deny them,
No,
that's not affirming that.
No, that's not even the case either.
How does gender affirming care
affirming
work?
does-
The child requests puberty blockers? Is that like whether like
Gender affirming
like-
care
okay,
means
that's
if the
worded in a really
child
weird way.
identifies as whatever gender identity,
Uh-huh.
you cannot question, as you just pointed out, exploratory therapy is the euphemism for what? Conversion therapy. So to say, hold on, let's explore to see
no,
if
no,
you're
no,
not
wait,
actually.
stop.
Okay, you just have
Gender
no
affirming
idea
care
what
doesn't
Go
mean
ahead,
you
no,
can't
go ahead.
question.
Hold on,
That's
let's
fine.
Red,
Go
I
ahead.
apologize. Your topic is
Which is
now
fine.
turned into a
You've heard the
trans
word-
debate.
you've heard the
between
word-
the-
Yeah,
This
I was
is
just
this is
I don't know.
utterly relevant.
You
I don't know.
heard the word.
This
Hey, hold
I'm
on,
the
the
wrong
Lonerbox
side
shook
for
his
this
head.
one.
Go ahead.
Holy fucking shit. Jesus Christ. You've heard the word affirming and you think that means give them whatever they want, whenever they want, whatever they ask.
Nope,
right?
nope.
Which
That's
is
not what I
fucking-
said. and I don't
Okay,
believe
so
that.
okay, fine. But if they ask for puberty blockers, that doesn't necessarily mean that you give them puberty blockers.
No.
Right?
But if a doctor
That is the
believes
claim
that
that
a
you
child,
think.
let me finish. If a doctor
Okay.
believes that in order to affirm their child's patient's gender, that the doctor wants to prescribe them puberty blockers, the government says no, you can't do that unless you're part of a research trial. And I absolutely support
Right.
that, and that makes
And
100%
there are
sense.
And
That's
there
what I
are
said.
national research trials in both the United Kingdom and in Sweden that make access to these not much different
So
than
you
they were
agree-
before.
And we can wrap this up here. I agree, Wick. This is not on topic, but I'll just ask Vivian. So you agree if a child is prescribed puberty blockers and they're not part of a research trial, then that should be criminalized?
No.
Okay, well then that's fine.
Why
You're
the
entitled to
fuck
that
would I?
opinion.
Why the fuck would I
That's
agree
exactly
with
what
that?
England's. That's exactly what England is doing, and
Yeah, I'm
Sweden
well
to some
aware of
degree as
what
well.
England is doing. I live
Well,
here in England,
Well,
where
hence-
we've had, where
Right,
we've had,
hence,
where
which
we've
is funny because you
7
said it's a
years.
made-up right-wing talking point that you know yourself. So
No,
go
You
read
said
this
you-
Sweden,
agenda.
then
you
you moved
said
to you said
puberty
Sweden, then you
blockers
moved to
Black
England.
cat's
said-
unlucky because it lies.
You said puberty
Let's move
blockers were.
on. Let's move on.
You
Let's
said
move on
puberty
to the more
blockers were
relevant topic.
banned. No, let's not move on after you've just
Let's move
lied.
on.
You
Let's
said
move
puberty blockers were banned. They were not banned.
They are
Right?
banned outside of research trials.
They're also
Okay.
not banned out of research in Sweden. You can still get them in rare cases.
True,
It's not just research in
In,
Sweden.
Engl-
so,
in England,
yeah, you
in
were wrong.
England,
But you started by
Oh,
saying
in England.
Sweden. Why are you
You said
lying?
Sweden.
Fucking hell.
Okay.
You started by
Hold
saying
on, wait,
Sweden
wait,
and you moved over to England after you looked it up. Jesus. Sorry.
What do you? Wait, hold on. define exactly the difference between what's going on in Sweden and England. You said outside of rare cases. What are those rare cases?
They're
Okay,
not
You're going to
researched.
accuse me of lying. This is
It's
bullshit.
like
I
a
understand
it's
the
a higher
okay.
threshold.
Other countries
My
that
fucking god,
spearheaded the
I'm
gender
going
affirming
to.
care
I
model
don't
are
know.
walking back.
I need Twitch affirming care because I
I
this
know,
is worthy of a discussion.
Yes, Wick,
But-
we need to do more one-on-one debates because there's too many crossfires. Because
I mean, it really doesn't.
Fine
It
as
really
bullshit.
doesn't matter, right? I can tie this up very nicely by just saying it really doesn't fucking matter because neither Sweden nor England, right, are promoting exploratory therapy, right? I.e., the euphemism for conversion therapy that certain people are using, right? Neither of those are using that, and that is the quack, harmful
I don't know that
torture of
that's true.
fucking children that
I
is
don't know that's
that is
true.
promoted by. And I don't know why we're instantly talking about children either, because it's promoted for trans adults as well. You just want to like every
It
time we
should be.
talk about
Adults should absolutely be entitled
time
to
we talk
any
about-
and all gender affirming treatment. Absolutely, children should not.
Okay, I don't care why you make that arbitrary distinction between the mental health of children
an adult and a
adults.
child, because one's an adult, one's a child. It's not arbitrary.
Okay, fine.
Same reason a child
Well,
can't decide who to have sex with, but an adult can.
Okay, fine. Well, children can actually, under certain circumstances, if they're having sex with another child, right?
Oh,
So other fucking things. So it's a lot. It's
Okay, we should
nothing
move
is
on.
as
Jordan Peterson, gang. Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson.
So we all agree we don't like Jordan Peterson's trans views, though. I think we're all on the same page.
I
there,
absolutely
right?
disagree when he said
Yeah.
that he thinks an adult should not be
So-
allowed to pursue gender affirming care. I think that's as ridiculous as anything Matt Walsh has said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get back to the crux of the issue, right? Should Canada or the College of Psychology in Canada have the right to censor or to at least require Peterson go through some sort of remedial course in order for that? That's been the crux of the issue. That's what we're trying to discuss before we got into the.
I just said he
child
should have lost his
stuff.
license ages ago for a whole bunch of other things. I think
Right.
lying in
Like
public
what?
But that's
about,
not the report we're
about,
talking about.
about things
Like
is
we can,
also a
try,
problem.
like if you want to try to try him for stuff he did a million years ago, feel free. But we're talking about the.
What do you mean a
current report that
million
just
years
happened.
ago?
Oh
Okay.
my
Talking
god!
about-
Just FYI.
Sorry,
the
let's have a
reason-
look at the report. How long
Wait.
ago? How long ago was the worst infraction? Sorry, the earliest infraction on the
It
report.
was like 2018. something like that.
2018. Right. Okay. So as long as I
But if
keep my
it's- but if
complaints to things he's done or said within the last 5 years, we're good. Yeah.
Well, I think if it's not included in the report, it's not part of this at all.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
it is fair. It is fair. I'll say this. It is fair to talk about Jordan Peterson and whether he should have a license or not, even if it isn't
sure.
covered in the report,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and
So
let-
if
and-
Vivian has something to say that
do
isn't
you think-
covered in the report that she has issues with, I think it's fine and fair to bring up.
Do you think that his behavior outside of the complaints in the report can possibly lead to them saying things like, we think there's a high likelihood that you're going to continue this behavior, right? Do you think that other actions that he takes that aren't part of the complaints that were made,
Well,
you
even
think-
part
do
of
you
the
think
complaints,
they could
they
inform
said-
their
they-
decision?
even part of the complaints, they said that there's a high chance that he keeps acting this way. That was like
Right.
part of the initial report.
Right.
But,
And do you think that some of the actions that he takes outside of the specific complaints could have informed that decision?
I mean, if it did, they didn't include it, so I can't tell you what they were thinking when they wrote the report. I wish
Okay.
I could. It was probably stuff like, I can't believe this guy's making us do this and won't just do the social media course. That's probably what they were thinking. But I think if it's not breaking laws like straight out, then I don't like the body taking away his license for this. I think like even the Elliot Page tweet, I think it's like I disagree with it completely. I wouldn't talk to him if I was at a party with him. But I think you should be able to tweet it out, and the rest of us should be like, that is horrible. You should never say that.
So do you hold that standard for every other organization as well? Like, should the NBA not have been allowed to suspend that guy for like flaunting his guns on Instagram, because that's not what they wanted their representatives doing either?
Was he threatening violence? No, NBA
he
is
wasn't doing anything illegal, no.
Wait. Let me backtrack very quickly. NBA is a private organization.
Okay, but so because it's a government organization, it's different.
100% giant difference.
But it's like
Yes.
again, like remember when you say government, because you said that
Right.
earlier, like, it's government funded. They're not like, it's not like they're politicians going in there making the rules, right?
Surely
Yeah, but
surely
it's
the
still-
government.
it's still
Surely
really
if
good
it's
all the money.
government, Surely if it's government, there should be an even higher barrier, right? Surely if it's private,
no.
they shouldn't be able to infringe on the lives of people as much, because if it's government, you're talking about something that's supposed to be representing the democratic will of the people in a profession that is supposed to be for the good of the people. And so there should be a higher standard, surely, of behavior expected, right?
I think we're like missing on like what we think good can be from like psychology or therapy specifically. I think we're all talking outside our wheelhouse there. I think though, when it comes to private versus government, yeah, of course, private can do whatever the fuck they want. That's the society we live in. I don't think it should be that way. I'm like I don't I don't like private businesses at all. But in the way that we exist in our current system, yeah, they get to do whatever the fuck they want. If the NBA could be like, you know what?
I thought we were talking about I thought we were talking about what was moral, not what is. You made that distinction several fucking times. Surely,
morally they shouldn't.
A private company should be held to.
So as soon as you get government money, you can't enforce standards for how people behave in public.
I think the biggest reason for free speech is freedom to criticize government, right? I think part of that is and it's unfortunate. I want to use climate change as an example. I really want to move off the trans thing because I don't think it's productive. But he talks about climate change a lot too, which could be seen as speaking against our government and the things that they do to try to stop or slow climate change. He should be allowed to do that. We should all be allowed to criticize our government in any way we want to. He's saying it's political. It's more about tone or whatever. I don't like also restricting on tone because restricting on tone also restricts people from the conversation.
He is allowed to do these things, right?
Yes.
It's just that he's not allowed to do them with the specific tone and the language and the demeaning fucking language that he's using, right?
Yes.
And he's not allowed to do that in a professional context either, right? Revoking somebody's just the same as if you're a member of a political party, you could be kicked out of a political party for presenting opposing views to that political party, right? That's not censoring your ability to freedom of speech. That is a particular institution has a job that needs doing, and you're required to behave in certain ways to make sure that that job can be done as effectively as possible, whether it's a political party with certain political views or psychologists providing help to vulnerable people. Right?
Yeah, and I agree, but
a moment,
give up a degree of that freedom of speech in order to do that.
$5 from Ādarius to say, are all the panelists aware that freedom of speech has nothing to do with social media platforms? That's incorrect. Freedom of speech absolutely has to do with more than simply the First Amendment or laws. Freedom of speech is a culture thing. But the question becomes, and I think the back and forth between Viv and Red is illustrating, is does policing tone have a chilling effect on the substance of what someone might say about the government in a critical fashion? So if you are allowed to criticize the government, but you have to do so in a not mean way, is that de facto saying you can't really criticize the government? Because some of the most biting criticisms have teeth, right? They are mean by nature. And who decides what is considered mean? Is me calling DeSantis
wait, Jordan Peterson's called various Western liberal democratic governments authoritarian, which I happen to agree with to a certain extent. I'm a fucking anarchist. Fuck the UK government, right? But he's used extremely inflammatory language against these governments, right?
Yes.
But these are not part of the complaint.
No, it seems like the government stuff was against thrown out. There's one tweet where he defended the Ottawa truckers and he criticized the Children's Aid Society for taking kids away from the protest, and that was thrown out as well. So again, it is more the interpersonal behavior, because again, psychologists are often expected to be at an interpersonal level quite empathetic and understanding all that. So when someone uses their massive public platform as a clinical psychologist to behave in ways, again, like the main words that they use are nothing to do with political, nothing to do with government, it's demeaning, degrading, unprofessional. Yeah, if you're a professional representing a professional organization with a professional title, of course they're allowed to regulate that. I don't know why that's so controversial.
So if any psychologist, let's broaden this out to just the principle, so we can use the United States as an example. If a psychologist with a large following demeaned Donald Trump, should they be subject to licensure regulation?
It depends on what you mean by demeaning.
depends what he
Like if they
says.
call
That's
them a
the-
fat
right.
fuck loser, like mentally ill retard, then maybe, yeah.
Yeah, if they use that
Really?
language specifically,
So
then yeah,
if
they
if
absolutely should.
well, okay,
because that
yeah,
would be
psychologist
stigmatized
uses the word.
mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's isn't there there's a certain rule or principle that says psychologists should never diagnose politicians from afar or something like that.
They shouldn't diagnose people who they aren't their clients is like something that's like, yeah, part of their oath or whatever.
Right. But, you know, if
What if
Jordan
the-
Peterson said Ted Bundy was psychopathic, you know.
Well, I mean,
clearly there's
if he
exceptions
has
to that.
if he has a diagnosis of psychopathy, you can
So hold on.
relay that
Wait,
diagnosis.
actually, here's a question. So any psychologist who says
I don't
that
think
Trump,
psychopathy is even a diagnosis anymore.
any psychologist who says Trump is a narcissist, are they engaging in unethical behavior that should be regulated?
If someone
I
like
think
did it as a diagnosis, they might be allowed to do that. Yeah.
if they say
Hold on.
he is a narcissist, I'm diagnosing him with narcissism.
No, if I just say
if they say he has these traits which we find in narcissism,
okay, hold on.
then
hold on.
maybe they can get around it a bit. I don't know. It'd have to be adjudicated by the
Okay,
board.
so let's compare it to because Jordan Peterson never
Yeah,
used
gray
the word
area.
I'm diagnosed. Jordan Peterson never used the word I'm diagnosing insert person he's so-called demeaning here. He's never done that. So if he says like criminal physicians or whatever, but
Right,
let's
none
talk
of those
about it more
things are
broadly. So let's
concrete.
hold on. So answer my question. If a psychologist on Twitter says, man, like in the tweet is Donald Trump is a fucking narcissist. That's the whole tweet.
Mhm.
I
So
think,
using
I
the
think,
term,
I
like,
think
there's so
that
many
is
mental health
I think that's a grey area where they could
Okay.
argue
That's fair.
they could argue that they're not diagnosing him with narcissistic personality disorder, but using narcissist in the colloquial term to say
That's
that
fair.
he's self-obsessed or whatever. But I would say that's a grey area where I think that people, where the board should adjudicate on it. I think that's something that would be investigated and possibly.
I would
you think-
have just before you go on that, I want to hear Lonerbox's response too. He was trying to get in there, and I have a question.
It's also a lot of words are diagnostic, but they're also colloquial, right? If Jordan Peterson was like going on Twitter saying, "Oh, fucking Radiohead's
Right,
so
like criminal.
depressing," like,
Like this is criminal. Like if some
well,
like
that's
if,
why they didn't say the criminal thing was defamatory. That was me saying it sounded defamatory, but they said it was inflammatory.
would you
Yeah.
regard it personally, Lonerbox, as inflammatory and defamatory?
I'd say it's unprofessional and inflammatory. Yeah, especially since it's a medical procedure. Yeah.
And
I
the
mean, I
nar-
think
and
it's
same
quite,
with the
I
nar-
think
so
it's quite
hold on. Let's
self-evidently.
can
I think it's
hold on.
quite self-evidently defamatory because they committed no
Why
crime.
do we have to go
right?
back and forth? Because
Vivian.
So there you go.
it's
Vivian, let's Lonerbox
it's
and
not reciprocal.
but first $5 from Portland is burning because
Go
I
ahead.
will interrupt you for money.
My boy
Regulatory
Portland.
bodies exist to ensure that people in positions of public trust behave ethically, not legally. This is obviously good. Hi, Wick. Okay, but yeah, I wanna allow some back and forth between Young and
yeah,
Lonerbox
okay, yeah.
here
So
briefly.
Loner, so Mr. Box or
Hmm.
what is it? Loner or Box or
You can use your imagination. It's fine.
okay, Mr. British person. As
Oh,
JJ
God,
McCullough
fuck, Jesus Christ. It's the
referred to you
worst.
as.
That's okay. I'm Scottish,
Hey,
but
it's all right. Scotland will leave.
Well, Scotland's part of
eventually, and you'll no
Scotland
longer
is
be-
Britain more broad. Isn't Britain the entire British Isles?
Yeah, yeah.
listen,
And now,
only
Okay,
in
let's
theory. Okay.
we're gonna go down
Noted-
another rabbit hole. It's gonna.
If I might,
I'm trying to
sorry.
stop that from
Noted-
happening.
Noted royal subject. Let me ask you this. Okay, so if we're speaking in principle, not if an American psychologist says Donald Trump is a fucking narcissist and just tweets that out, do you think that is, Vivian said it's a gray area. Do you think it's a gray area and it should be investigated? Or is that something that's pretty clearly like, hey, if a college investigated a psychologist for saying Donald Trump is a fucking narcissist, that's probably an overreach of the college's regulatory authorities?
So what really matters is if it's a one-off for one, because again, part of this procedure was deciding whether or not there was the risk of recurrence and how much of
Okay,
a
what if
pattern
it's
of
like
behavior it was.
rel-
So
like-
yeah,
Let's say this psychologist tweets once a day and twice a month he says something to the effect of Donald Trump is a fucking narcissist.
yeah, it's probably unprofessional. Yeah, I think
So
it'd be
you
worth
think
having. I think it would be worth saying like, do the social media course, and they'd be like, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so you think if someone says Donald Trump is a fucking narcissist relatively often on Twitter and they're a psychologist, you think that warrants an investigation on behalf of the college?
sure, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's absurd. I would say that's if someone if
But that
if the-
seems to be a reply to
let me
everything.
finish.
That's absurd.
if the Trump administration was in charge and there were psychologists who were criticizing him in that way. And the college under the Trump administration started investigating psychologists for saying Trump is a fucking narcissist. I would say that is an utter overstep and infringement on free speech and should be unanimously condemned on all sides. But
So
you
did
don't appear to share that standard.
So did Trudeau or his administration have any say in this investigation? Because again, government funded doesn't mean politicians are in there being like, this Jordan Peterson guy, we gotta get him taken down. These are very different.
Sure.
So no, if the American
Sure.
Psychological Association was going after an American psychologist, I wouldn't feel like the Trump administration is the one pulling the strings like the fucking Godfather. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more of a UK thing.
Okay, first off, who does the head of the American Psychological Association is not I don't believe is a government entity. I could be wrong.
I don't know the exact name. I was just giving a random.
Okay, but the Ontario board is a government regulatory agency. Am I incorrect in that?
Okay, well, whoever certifies fucking American psychologists then.
Right. So if a government agency investigates a psychologist for calling a political leader a fucking narcissist, I would regard that as an obvious overstep of free speech. That's my point.
Okay, then what the fuck is the point of regulatory bodies anyway?
To ensure that they are not pushing pseudoscience in the profession of which they are offering services. Again, the entire point of a regulatory body for a professional service is to ensure the quality of the services delivered, which have nothing to do with Jordan Peterson making statements about public figures.
Well, maybe because it looks like Pearson attacks Trudeau on Twitter all the time, and that wasn't brought up at all in the complaints. So
okay, good. That aligns.
Maybe
with
it's
what
different.
I would
Maybe
believe.
I don't know if the difference is that you're allowed. You've got fair.
What
game
do
to
you
go after
disagree with what I
politicians,
just said?
with what you just, it's because it's a fine line between, like, first on the one hand you're attacking a political figure, which does have like a chilling effect potentially because they should be more fair game. Then there's the other side of it, which is whether or not it's professional to, especially if you have like psychologist in your Twitter bio, to be going out using terms that could be considered clinical by a lot of people.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why it's a gray area.
The point I'm making is that, okay, fair enough. If we agree it's a gray area and we can move on to someone else, the point I'm making is, given it's a gray area, the last thing we should be erring on is, well, it might be unprofessional, it could be considered unprofessional, and therefore warrants an investigation by the regulatory board. I think unprofessional is so vague of a term that we should be erring on the side of free speech. If you're criticizing a public figure, it doesn't really matter how unprofessional it is, unless there is strong reason to believe it is interfering with the ability of that individual to provide specific professional services, which there's no evidence that it is.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
I mean, that's wrong.
Sorry.
Because
Tell me why. Go ahead.
Okay, that's wrong because as I've outlined several times during this conversation, right, the board determined that, yeah, the way he's behaving on social media and so on, the demeaning language he uses, can undermine faith in the profession. And I've outlined why that's dangerous several times
Yeah, but
already.
there's no proof of that. There's no proof of that.
But, I mean, that is for them to adjudicate, and they adjudicated that it is.
What kind
right?
of proof?
And I
do they
think that
have
it's.
to
I think that I've outlined actually why it's almost self-evidently the case, right? Because a person's first point of contact with a clinical psychologist should not be that clinical psychologist mocking somebody for being fat, calling a trans person mutilated, or fucking calling another physician who's acting perfectly. These are not my.
It's always going to be based on opinions.
Okay, okay,
that's my point. So if it's always based on opinion,
well, that's just your opinion, and this whole panel is fucking moot.
So would you rather have?
Everything is permitted.
But it is a fact, right? It is a fact, okay, that people's opinions affect how they would go about seeking care if they are in a vulnerable state. Right?
True.
And so when you use insulting and demeaning language that is likely to put off a significant portion of the population, you are bringing that profession into disrepute in some fashion. You are harming their ability to engage with the public. Yes or no?
So fair enough. Yes. Okay. So let's say you're right.
And after this back and forth, I want to get Red in here.
Totally. So
well, that's it. It's over. We're done with the panel now. Thank you very much. They adjudicated correctly.
Right, exactly. The cat's got my tongue. All we need to do is now apply your example. So you said. Let me try and repeat that. You said if someone's behavior, demeaning behavior, not upsets, but causes a large portion of the population to if the first contact with a clinical therapist professional is something demeaning, then and that
Right.
potentially undermines the ability of a large number of people to access those services. Is that more or less?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
So if that's the case, again, let's apply it in the hypothetical we just talked about. If a psychologist says Trump is a fucking narcissist, you could just as easily say, well, that would prevent a lot of Trump supporters, which are a large, significant
And we all agreed that there
population.
should be an investigation into.
No, absolutely. That's my point. That I would if a psychologist said Trump was a fucking narcissist on Twitter, and then the government investigated him, I would say that is a right-wing fucking bullshit infringement on free speech. That's
Okay,
what
but
I would say.
Okay, but I wouldn't.
Well, fair enough. Then you are a bigger fan of the Trump administration than I am.
How does
No,
that
I'm
make
not
you
a
a
bigger
fan
fan
of the
of-
Trump? It's a fan of professional standards within a
Okay, you know what?
particular
It's a
like
bit
discipline.
of a. It's okay. It's a bit. It's.
I know
it's
you're
like
trying.
telling
You're trying
someone
to get.
it's
You're
like
trying to
telling
get me
someone
with
that you
some
can
kind of
you
like
can leave.
double
right? You're free to
standard
leave.
of
It's
like,
not
oh, if the
actually-
left does it, it's okay. If the right does it, it isn't okay. No, I have moral standards. Unlike you partisan
Again,
fucking
you keep
hack.
saying the thing with
No.
the government investigate. It's the government didn't investigate Jordan Peterson. It was a government-funded body where people don't
Okay,
take
fair
advice from
enough.
politicians and shit. But you
I'm
say fair
using
enough,
this
but you keep
colloquially.
on doing it. You keep on doing it. It's just really
Okay, I don't-
annoying. Fucking.
Okay, Wick, there's something I would like to iron out with Lonerbox before the end of this panel, because I think you're being genuinely disingenuous in a serious way,
Okay.
especially earlier about what you accused me of,
By
which
all
will
means,
prove you
but can we
completely
get
wrong.
Red in here first before
Go ahead,
before
Red.
that? I read poor
Appreciate it.
Red
Thank
is
you.
sitting there. You gotta assert yourself, buddy. You gotta
I've
throw
got.
some
I'm
blows,
just.
right?
I'll let Young do his ranting. So you said, Vivian, you said that how Jordan Peterson acts on Twitter and in like the regular space can cause people not to seek mental health care due to how he portrays the profession.
Sure, yeah.
I think people are smarter than that, aren't going to think that like every psychologist is going to be like Jordan Peterson, or that like it plays down the need. Please let me talk. It doesn't get rid of the need for mental health professionals just because like one of them is being a little unhinged on Twitter. And I also think that having them free to do this in the public space also will let people realize, oh, hey, I don't want that guy to be my mental health professional. I would much rather psychos and freaks like Jordan Peterson are out there spouting this bullshit into the ether, so that if I end up going to their clinic and I see their name on there, I'm going to be like, I don't want that one. I know he hates me. That's way more important to let them tell you who your enemies are.
Okay, so I don't agree, actually, that especially when we're dealing with vulnerable individuals who may have a variety of mental health conditions, that they are able to make these assessments as rationally as you describe, right? We're not talking about necessarily somebody who's going to get their car changed, okay? We're talking about people with potentially serious mental health issues who may come across this and, may very well be put off the idea of engaging with the psychological profession because of it. Even somebody entirely rational, if this is their first fucking contact with the psychological profession, right, may well decide that they don't want to engage with it, especially if they've seen some of the other shit that psychologists do, because it's fucking nuts all around the world.
Wick, is there somewhere else you want to go with this? Because we've sort of established where everyone stands on this.
I know, I understand. I wanted to give you that space to iron out. First of all, thank you for the 100 bits, Feder Methodist. And I don't know why your son is calling me Grandpa, Rabid Wombat, but
It just seems to me, Young. You say we've ironed this out, right? But it seems to me that, like, with you specifically, that there is a contradiction there, and that you're like, you agreed with me essentially that like the Canadian board would like had the right to do this, that he was undermining the profession and the ability of people to access that. But in the case of a Trump government doing this, like, a psychological profession in America while Trump was president doing this, right?
No, I said,
you would have a problem with.
I said, let me take, if I agreed with your logic, let me apply it to the Trump case. And I said, I don't, I think that's incorrect. So I don't agree.
Okay.
No, I don't agree with that at all. So
Okay.
now we know where everyone's
I think people should reasonably be able to access mental health care, and that like psychological associations, that their job, right, at least part of their remit, should be making sure that it is as accessible to as many people as possible, right? And I think that is what
maybe sure.
I
Okay.
think that
I
is
agree with
what
that
this.
broadly.
I think that is what this. I think that is what this does.
Sure,
So I
wondered.
think it's restricting its access to people though by restricting how they're able to talk to the public. I think like that's the issue that I come back to this on, is that like this arbitrary level of professionalism, like you want them to act this certain way so they can access the most amount of people. Well, that's going to exclude a group of people that don't resonate with that kind of speech.
I don't think. No, I don't think. See, and you used this argument
You're just
earlier.
gonna use the same.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You used this argument. No, we are actually moving here, right? Because you used this argument earlier. You said that he's like using certain language in the public sphere that allows him to appeal to like his base, which you described as incels or whatever, right? I think that's actually not
I believe it was
quite
lonely
his base,
Twitter
but-
trolls.
It's not quite.
he said incels. He said lonely
Incel
Twitter
lonely.
trolls.
All these words were used. Yes, incel.
I'm not trying to
lonely.
appeal. I'm not trying to appeal.
investigate him.
I can call them whatever I want.
Regardless. Okay. You made this statement earlier. Okay. And I think that there are things in this complaint that he doesn't have to do to reach out to those people. He doesn't have to demean somebody as being fat, or demean somebody as being a fucking criminal, or demean somebody as being mutilated in order to reach out to his lonely Twitter trolls, right? He can express his political disagreements with them. He can express his sympathy towards the lonely Twitter trolls, many of whom probably are fat. Let's be fucking honest, if you're a lonely Twitter troll, right? So he's probably harming his engagement somewhat there by demeaning people for being fat. But like, he can do it without that language, right? I don't think that the language in this complaint is necessary for him to reach out to those people. Do you?
Okay, let's next. Or is there another avenue you want to pursue, Wick?
Well, I want Red to answer the question, and then I want to give you your space to have the confrontation with Loner.
I'm trying to find the tweets that are specifically about the model that he called, that he didn't really, I don't think he called her straight out fat. I don't think he did. He said, sorry, not beautiful. And he said, sorry, not beautiful. No man of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. From what I remember, I agree that, like, I don't agree with him. I think he's a piece of shit for like expressing.
I don't care whether you agree with him.
But I think he gets to express his view. I think this was his commentary on society and society changing to have different beauty standards. And I think he doesn't like it. And I think he's a reactionary conservative. And so he doesn't like things changing. I think he's allowed to make comments on that. And using a model on a Sports Illustrated magazine, like, she also put herself in the public sphere for this, just like he did. They are all open to criticism on this.
And
yeah, but you don't think the board of a regulated profession has the right to say, no, this doesn't represent us? And by the way, again, like, they've been getting complaints about Peterson since 2017 or 2018, and they've offered him a training course, which he didn't take.
I think we hold some careers and professions on like a pedestal that they don't necessarily need to be, and I think this might be one of them. I think that it could benefit from having a much wider range of kinds of people who can do and access that kind of mental health work, because I think you can catch more flies in the net if you have more people of varying views. I think him making these views open to the public, again, if you're overweight, you probably don't want Jordan Peterson to be your therapist. I think having all the therapists do stuff like that means you avoid those therapists, and I think that is just good. Like, I think
that's half the lonely Twitter trolls that you said he was appealing to gone already.
Cite your source on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Really?
Okay.
Get the fuck out.
Okay.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay.
What a baby.
I want to give space. You said that Lonerbox was being disingenuous. Elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. Okay, we're gonna have to go back down this rabbit hole momentarily for 3 minutes. I said Sweden and England ban puberty blockers. I said Sweden originally ban puberty blockers outside of a research setting, and then you said they only banned it they banned it except in rare cases, and then said I was lying because I brought up England when I originally said Sweden. It is absolutely the case that Sweden and England both ban puberty blockers outside of research settings. The exception that you referenced is research setting. So I'm correct on that.
Is this from?
You said I lied.
Is this from a report from earlier than February 22 that was reporting on what might happen? Because the Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare updated in 2022 to say that they restricted puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to youths for everyone except from those with the classic childhood onset of cross-sex identification and distress. So they limited the diagnostic criteria, not just research.
Send it in the chat.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's still irrelevant.
I did see one article saying it was a ban, but then they linked to that source, and I was like, "That's not quite a ban." But
If
yeah,
they well, it might not.
Let's
not
come back to this for a
quite be
third time once we've
ban,
ironed this out.
right? Well,
you can say highly limited. I think I'll put it in.
Sure.
Is it the backstage chat? I can put it in.
you can do it in the group chat. You can DM directly. There's all sorts of places you can put it.
Okay.
Put it in my general Discord.
To be fair, in order to get a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, you have, like, according to both the DSMV and the ICD, you basically have to exhibit the things that Lonerbox set out anyway.
What was the date, Lonerbox?
Yeah.
February 2022, right? Unless it's
think
changed
that's-
again. I will also
think that's
say,
when the
I
new
will also
guidance
say, while you're reading that, like, yeah, calling that lying is a bit far because it's like
August
a lot of
2nd,
press
2023.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
changed again.
Did you? That was kind of an apology, Lonerbox, for calling there.
What?
Yeah, I shouldn't have called you a liar, yeah. But as far as I know, they restricted it to diagnostic criteria. That's why it said very rare instead of full ban. So
National Board of Health and Welfare.
2023.
In Sweden, Sweden decided in February 2022 to halt hormone therapy for minors except in very rare cases. And in December, the National Board and Health and Welfare said mastectomies for teenage girls wanted to transition should be limited to a research setting. So-called puberty blockers have been in use in young teens contemplating gender-related outside unwanted physical changes.
That's
Okay.
from
This is from
France
August
24.
2nd, 2023.
Right, but it's reporting of the decision in February 2022.
That's what I mean by very
Yes.
rare cases being different from research setting, because the very rare cases don't necessarily have to be research. It's limiting the diagnostic criteria, no?
Where does that say?
That's what I'm saying about the article I just sent you. Only a minority of gender dysphoric youth.
While-
those with the
while you
classic
read
childhood
that-
onset
We'll come back
cross-sex
now.
While
identification
you read
distress.
that
Alright,
and get
exactly.
to it, just
We'll
real
do it a
quick,
third
thank
one.
you for the sub, Miss Millie. Also, Parallax tells Grackle to shut the fuck up. He paid me to say that, so there you go. And $5 from me, Rootsy, to say, all right, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Okay, well, thank you for the $5. And gang, it is you do get 30% off for subs on Twitch this month. So if you want to give me subs, now would be the time to do so. If you are enjoying this content. But okay. So I will confess I am not familiar with Sweden's position on puberty blockers or on gender affirming care in general. I did not.
It is true. It is true that in Europe there is both a pushing forward of trans rights in general, right, and certain governments and institutions which are holding back and rolling back, right? The UK is one of them. Sweden is one of them, right? Where there is like a backtracking on these things, and that is largely due to heavy fucking campaigning from absolutely insane individuals and institutional capture over here in the UK, where transphobes have just been given positions on the fucking Equality and Human Rights Commission, for example.
In the article that Lonerbox
it's-
sent me in 2022 with the
Yeah.
update, further, it is not readily apparent how the guidelines requirement to provide pediatric transitions only in research setting will be practically implemented, given there are no ongoing research trials in Sweden. So,
And then they say
in
below
the classic
some sections.
centrist,
Sorry, you go on.
or what did
Or
you
shall I-
say?
Oh yeah, the section below they say some exceptions apply. Puberty blockade can be offered in extreme circumstances to those with post-pubertal onset gender dysphoria. So that's why what I mean by the shrinking the criteria. Yeah, it's
Okay.
I will say it's a very fucking minor distinction, but yeah.
Sure.
But it's
Okay.
not
And maybe
only
we
for
can
research,
we can metaphorically kiss and make up, because my point broadly that I certainly should narrow down next time and not be allowed to be called a liar, which my poor articulation of the
I won't
evidence opened me
censor
up to that.
him, just like I wouldn't censor
Is
Jordan Peterson. I won't censor Lonerbox from
Exactly.
calling
My-
you
my
a criminal, a
point is-
liar, a fascist,
yeah.
an authoritarian, a
the
narcissist.
fact
Jeez.
Yeah.
this
Oh, is this my Discord or is this all y'all?
England. Hello?
Is it my storm?
Hello?
Wick?
Hello?
Can you guys hear me? I can hear you guys.
Smooth on my side. Yeah.
Oh, that it must be the storm. Apologies. Can you repeat what you just
Okay.
said? None of my
The-
audience heard it.
Yeah, my point. All of this ties back to Jordan Peterson because this is the point. The point is the fact that Sweden and England have moved away from the gender-affirming care model that we speak of in the United States, which is there are no requirements to be in research settings or it's restricted to prepubertal onset of gender dysphoria. It can be prescribed at 13 or whatever it is available now. The fact that other countries have moved away from that model was my original point. Now, of course, these details get nitty-gritty. As you said, it's a minor distinction. But that's the fact that is happening means it's probably not some crackpot right-wing thing to do, to say, hey,
No, it
we're
is.
going to criticize
It is.
the,
Yeah, we have a fascist
cutting off the breasts of
authoritarian
13-year-old girls, for example.
But
Like, I think it is absolutely
Sorry,
acceptable
no, okay, sorry.
to
Who's
say
cutting
that
off the
double-
breasts of 13-year-old girls?
in the United States.
How many
double mastectomies?
13-year-olds have had a
Wait,
double
hold on.
mastectomy?
Okay,
Notice
while
how
he
you
looks
just
it
switched
up,
your
while he
question.
looks it up, let me read some money. Let's read some money.
Go ahead.
$5
Go
from
ahead.
me,
Read
Rootsy,
some
to
money.
say sweep the leg, Johnny. And $5 from
Sure.
Temperate Takes, and this is actually an important point. I did not know this. Thank you, Temperate Takes, for letting us know, because it's she says this: if anyone cares, the college, referring to the Ontario College of Psychology, is a private government hybrid. Half of its board is voted in by members. The other half are government appointees.
Like the Fed.
So it's not just
Whoa.
government
Okay.
funding,
Like the Fed.
but it is
So
people
same as,
being appointed to the position by the government. So that
Same as
does that
CBC.
change your stance, Loner, at all?
I think that means you should probably lay off when people attack politicians. Then, yeah.
That's so interesting. Wouldn't you err on the side of let everyone air out their criticisms of people in power, regardless of their politics?
That's what I said, but like Jordan Peterson wasn't even in trouble for attacking people in power. He was attacking like randoms or other celebrities, which I think is
Yeah.
maybe a bit different.
Okay, I know
when it
we
comes to
keep going back and
professionalism,
forth between whether or not, like, that's why I brought the example of saying Trump is a fucking narcissist.
Yeah, and
So, like-
even if in the context of that conversation, I even said it. I think you remember me saying it was a bit different when it comes to politicians.
Maybe there'd be a
We could
degree
maybe
of
be a bit more fair
protecting
game. That's much more
political
grey,
speech
yeah.
or whatever,
Well,
but
public
it's not,
figures in general.
not relevant
Like if
to
I
this
said Matt
conversation.
Walsh is a fucking narcissist.
Do we really care though, like about tone over subject matter? Because like I think that's like what it comes to, or like how it's said, or like if you say like mean words while attacking someone, like that's like kind of what this comes back to.
You're supposed to present yourself in a certain way as a psychologist. That's what you fucking sign up to.
Yeah, but that's
when
classes.
you
like
get your life.
It's
Sorry,
raising
it's
your
what?
above,
Classes. It's not like Jordan
more-
Peterson's
What the
fucking
fuck is
working
it?
class roots are coming out when he's saying this shit.
I'm sorry. How
Well,
is
there's a lot of
no,
working
but
Fucking
class roots.
AV.
But
Wait,
How
for
is it
people
getting
you're
on
trying
getting in
to,
the same
but
cycle
people
here.
you're trying to like get to though, like AAV is a perfect example. Like, is that considered professional if a psychologist
Yes,
speaks like
it's
that?
fine.
Are you
Yes.
Yeah, I
sure?
think if a psychologist used
if it
AV and
wasn't,
they got in
it-
trouble for being unprofessional, that would be insane. Yeah, that
Wick,
would be
Wick, how
horrible.
about
But it
this?
used to be
this?
like that. It used to be like that, and this is just like the next
Okay,
like
who cares about
conversation
what
of
it
like
used
what is
to be like?
unprofessional or
Yeah,
not.
but Jordan
Okay.
Peterson's not doing what he's doing because of class. Like he's doing it because he's an asshole, and because it's actually his brand. His brand
If he
outside
was
of psychology
doing it,
is
just
shitting
real
on
quick,
people
if
who
he
he disagrees
was
with.
doing
Like,
it because of his class and he was raised on the streets, right? He was from the streets, and he used fucking every
Oh,
5
God.
words, right? Every 5 words, he just fucking this,
Like
fucking
me.
that,
The
fucking
backwoods
like me.
of Ontario.
Would
I
that
believe.
be
as
would
someone
that
who
change
actually
your
is
opinion?
from a working class
I mean-
background,
I
my
wouldn't-
working class
I
background's always getting
Yeah.
me to say like authoritarian fucking wokeness is making me think fat people are
Yeah,
hot.
yeah.
Yeah.
As someone-
I
yeah,
have
as
a
someone-
I have a
neo-Marxist,
can we explore this
totalitarian,
hypothetical?
whatever.
Can we-
Like,
Can we explore this hypothetical?
Let Vivian finish, and then
Okay.
no, it's fine. I lost my fucking train of thought anyway.
Okay. So let's
I'm-
take
I'm
an
looking forward to
active
hearing what to say.
culturally relevant hypothetical. Starfield, the guy went crazy because
Oh, God.
they asked him for his pronouns, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is I'm memeing here. But would you agree, Vivian, that it is unethical for a psychologist to refuse to address someone by their preferred pronouns?
Yeah, I would broadly say so. Yeah.
Broadly.
Yeah,
Are there exceptions to that?
Well, I was trying to think, right? But I think probably, yeah, you would, yeah. I think you would have to especially in a professional setting, you would have to.
So
Because
you're
the
saying
point.
there are no exceptions. If someone has a preferred pronoun, if a psychologist
Well, the
refers to the
reason
pronoun,
the reason I'm going right is because I'm trying to think of a potential exception. I can't think of one. I imagine you're going to try and bring something up that
Yeah.
maybe I will agree with
Yeah.
or not agree with.
Like-
So why
like
don't you
it-its
just do that?
or bugs? It-its or
Right.
bugs. Do you think
So-
that it's unethical to not refer to
It's
someone by
or
that pronouns?
it's or what?
It-its or bugs. Let's just go with it-its for now. We can
Bugs.
take any pronoun.
Never heard that one. But I'm fine with it. It's I think there can be exceptions made for and this is obviously extraordinarily fringe, but would be exceptions made for people who want to be referred to by things that are colloquially understood to be like a slur or whatever, right? Like if they were like my pronouns are the N word and the K
Yeah.
word, right?
Sure. Okay,
like
but let's.
I think
let's
there
take-
could be exceptions made for that because those people aren't acting in good faith anyway, and
Okay.
can fuck off. But
Let's say Jordan Peterson tweeted. Let's say there was a public figure who referred to their pronoun, who called their who pronouns were it-its,
okay,
and Peterson said, "I'm not calling this person an it-its."
okay,
And then the Ontario College of Psychologists said, "This is unethical.
okay.
Your license is revoked." Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they wouldn't do that though, but I would agree with that.
Sure. Okay.
They wouldn't do
what-
that.
this
They
is
haven't done
hypothetical.
that in this situation.
Lonerbox, what do you think?
I think when it comes to bigotry or like whatever, I think there's she, he, and they. I have lots of love for my its friends, but I don't think that's like a bigotry or transphobia struggle.
Why
I think
not?
it's something else. Because we have a lot of precedent and a lot of understanding of why people might feel like their psychology or their neurology is out of line with their body, which is why you might call a trans woman she and a man he and they. Other pronouns, I think it's like it's very outside of that, and I think there's a different explanation for it. I don't think there's any research behind it that backs it up. So yeah, it's a completely separate thing for me. I can elaborate further if you want, but yeah.
Fundamentally, my point is not necessarily based on like the validity of these identities, right? Which I imagine I would have some contestants with Lonerbox on, but is more about the role of the psychologist in being
right.
empathetic and understanding towards a patient and making sure that they are able to access the psychological care that they need. If personal beliefs don't fucking matter in that, you have to put
Well,
that shit
hold
aside
on,
for the welfare of the patient.
Okay, let me just make
Um,
this specific
yeah.
point. You just said you would have contention with Lonerbox on this issue, probably. Around
On
the
the validity of
of an
certain
it-its identity,
pronouns and
yeah.
identities or
Xenogender.
whatever.
Okay. So that's an example.
Okay, but this isn't a xenogender panel.
Okay, but this
And
is my
whether
point.
or
It's
not,
only
and
Can I
I
finish
just,
my-
Hey,
and
can
I
I finish
just
my
said
point?
whether or not Lonerbox.
I don't know what this panel is anymore, to be honest
It-
with you. But
The reason I'm asking this
Oh,
is
fuck.
because it's a perfect example of how there's a dispute even among the people on the left side of the panel, from my perspective, about whether or not it's ethical for a psychologist to refuse to use the preferred pronouns of an individual. Vivian would say it
No.
is unethical. Lonerbox would say it's not unethical. So given
Okay,
there's a
but the
dispute even
the
among
reason
you guys,
is- oh my
why
fucking
would we cede that power to a regulatory board?
Okay, straight up. First, we don't. Right? We don't. They didn't. It hasn't happened. Right? Okay.
That's what a hypothetical
I
is.
would potentially. Okay, I would potentially say that. But the reason I would potentially say that is not because of like a political disagreement or like whether like our personal fucking views on Xenogenders or whatever. Right? It is because, and I laid this out right before you completely ignored what I said and said what you were going to say anyway. Right? Is because the psychologist's job is to put aside certain personal views for the welfare and well-being of the patient so that they can access the healthcare that they need and get that health, right? And
Not
so
if the psychologist feels
and
that
so
it's
treating
affirming a delusion. by
you
calling
gotta
them
let
an
Vivian
it-its.
finish.
okay. I think neither I nor Lonerbox would go to the extent that we would say it is affirming a delusion, right? And there is no reputable fucking psychiatric body or psychological body that would say the same either, right?
Wait, hold on.
Like,
isn't that what
affirming
Lonerbox?
its
Do you
pronoun.
disagree that Lonerbox? Why would you refuse to address an its person, or why do you think that it's not unethical for a psychologist to refuse to address an its person as it?
Well,
There was
no, I don't think
already
it's as a
cultural
delusion.
understanding.
I think it's like I don't think people are delusional about what are you identifying as. I feel like people who identify as it's just want that pronoun. I don't think it's delusional.
If it's okay, hold on. So, all right, I may be mistaken. If it's not a delusion, then why would you be okay with a psychologist not referring to someone
Because as far as I know in psychology, it is not like a trans identity, and even people who I
what
know
is it?
who are it will say, like I don't know, but ask them.
delusion.
It's a political, to that some people it's a political statement. Like I don't know, yeah.
So its
like-
identity is
or
a
they
political
see-
statement?
So some people see pronouns. People who go with the Xenogenders, I think. Try to quote what I've heard. Like people who go with its will usually see that their identity is more than just an expression of something that is like innate and immutable about them. I think they're actually expressing something more like vague and cultural. Like it's more to do with taste or like similar to like liking a band
Okay,
or being a
that's
fan
fair.
of something. Like they see pronouns in that way. They see pronouns as like just as arbitrary as a different name.
That sounds valid to
which
me.
is why I wouldn't say that a psychologist is obligated, because like a psychologist is not obligated to call me a fucking like Radiohead fan any more than they're obligated to call me like a new pronoun or a different name.
They are obligated to refer to you as your preferred pronouns, though.
If it's she, thee, and they, I think they're
This is
obligated.
my
I don't think
point.
there's any psychology institution that says you should go
I'll
with
back off after
neopronouns.
this. My
That's
point
why
is
I think it's a different category. Yeah.
the fact that there is dispute right here is indicative that you can't just say, oh, well, the regulatory body gets to decide what's unethical or not, because you guys can't even decide what's unethical. So
Well, we're
generally
not the
speaking,
fucking
when there's
To be clear,
but that's
none of
my
this was
point.
about
When there
politics
is
again. It was
when
about
there is
professionalism. Yeah.
when there is an open dispute, okay, well, no, that's not all the difference. When there is a dispute about, well, you know what, there are open questions about whether or not we should be, what did Peterson say? Criminal.
There are always going to be. There are always going to be.
Yeah,
fucking
criminal
disputes.
physician or whatever. Which, as we pointed out with narcissists, people use terms that colloquially, and whether like if I get scammed, I can say, oh, that's criminal or whatever.
There are always going to be disputes, dude. Right? Like everybody's going to have disputes
Not
with what
necessarily.
psychological. But no, there are. There are people
No,
that believe
if
that
someone said
depression can be cured by just getting up and fucking doing shit because it's a fake disease and doesn't exist. Right? People say that shit all the fucking time. Okay.
that's
the
true,
point
that's not very
is.
good.
The point is that the regulatory body have to have a standard, right? Like they have to have a standard. They can't allow those people, right? And
Sure.
Lonerbox thinks that they shouldn't allow people not to use preferred pronouns if those preferred pronouns are she, he, and they. I think that they should use pretty much whatever preferred pronouns somebody has, because it's about facilitating conversation and access to treatment. But like, there's the regulatory body decide, and it's perfectly reasonable for them to have a standard that actually is much like more loose, more forgiving than what either I or Lonerbox are prescribing
But
right now.
If I may interject here, one of the issues that we're having is that specifically with Jordan Peterson, these things were not done to his clients. They were done on a public platform to public-facing people who were also on that platform.
But I explained why that matters like multiple times, right?
I understand.
And we all pretty much agree with it, right?
But that's also why, again, like, yeah, people in this panel probably don't agree whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse was a murderer. That's why you have a trial and a jury. Like the same thing that happened in this investigation was that there were multiple interveners.
That's
there
completely
was
different.
from
That's our
Justice
legal case.
Strand,
That has
there
nothing
were
to do with
interveners from
pronouns or professionalism.
Well, no,
That's
the
a
panel
bad analogy.
The analogy is that in Rittenhouse, they were both interpreting the law in different ways, the people who contested and the people who were supported. In this case, they would seem to be going over interpretations of the code and over and legal precedent as well. They used two cases in the precedent to see that to see if it matched what was happening with Jordan Peterson. And there were people from different sides giving their interpretations. There was the Constitution Foundation, there was the Civil Liberties Association, there was the Association of Aggrieved Regulated Professionals, and there was the College of Physicians. So yeah, there were multiple perspectives. There was a standard in place that they were arguing over, and it seems like one side won and one side lost, just like a court case. Yeah.
Okay, this is again the more relevant issue at hand is the morality of it, not just what happened to be the procedural facts of the case.
Cool,
So again, it's not interesting to comment about what actually is.
You're talking about very, very like minute fucking detail, right? Where like different
Minute to you, big to me.
I'm sure.
I had
I'm
a
sure
nickel
the
every
use,
time I
I'm
heard
sure
it.
the use of pronouns is an extraordinarily huge issue to you, but it
is.
Yeah, it is. It is. We can't affirm these people's delusions. We're destroying Western society. Blah blah blah. Very boring.
No, well, no, just
can,
on that, because you just accused me of that. I think the reason I call it's a delusion is because I think it makes a mockery of actual transgender people. It makes it more difficult for them to assimilate.
You know what?
Society.
I'm an actual transgender person. Get fucked. Okay.
You speak on behalf of all transgender people?
You don't speak
on
behalf
elected?
of any.
Okay, stop.
I speak on behalf of all white people, apparently, because
I at
my
least
identity
speak on behalf of one, okay? And that's more than you can say. So, but regardless, okay, you're talking about things which are beneath the consideration of this board, right? And we're saying that we think that the consideration of the board, as it currently stands, is appropriate, at least. Right? Some of us would prefer it to go. Some of us would prefer it to go further. Right? But if we're disagreeing about where it is now, right? Why are you asking about a more extreme restrictive position?
To test your principles applied.
But my principles applied to a more extreme restrictive position don't fucking matter, right?
Yes, they do, because you're up. Okay, never mind.
Well, they don't. They bear no relevance on a less extreme, more moderate position. Right?
But
unless I was saying that they couldn't do this, right?
Do you have a limit on how much speech a regulatory body can restrict? Because obviously you're okay with what they're doing.
I think it's very dependent. If we're talking specifically about the profession of psychology, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it would differ from profession to profession, right?
For sure.
A legal professional, a medical professional, a fucking police officer, right? All should have certain and probably differing standards to the level of speech that they can express in public, and especially in a professional capacity, right? So do I think there's any limits? Yeah, of course I think there's limits, but I think that those limits are determined by weighing the person's individual autonomy against the potential harm that they can do both to the profession, access to the profession, and to the patients under their care.
But that makes it so that Peterson's going to be judged unfairly against his peers, because no matter what, he's going to have like way more impact than anyone else.
Well, yeah, because yeah, exactly. So if you take on an extremely prominent position, right, then obviously your words are going to reach more people, and you have more of a responsibility to make sure that your words are appropriate.
That may be true, but
And he decided to neglect his fucking patients in pursuit of a quicker and media.
That's not part of this fucking report.
No.
It's not a part of this report that he neglected his patients.
A whole bunch of questions that had nothing to do with the fucking report.
Okay. So I have a question.
But you keep bringing that up. It doesn't matter.
I have a question.
Rick, I will allow you to ask a question on your own panel.
I swear to God.
One of the things that we've talked about today is how public speech by Peterson or other psychologists might limit the amount of people or affect the willingness of people who watch that speech to get care. One of the main problems, ironically, that the psychological profession, at least in America, has is that a lot of incels and other individuals of that nature refuse to seek care. And when they do seek care, they report that psychologists and the people that they are working with do not take their views seriously, demean them, belittle them, and oftentimes will stop working with them altogether. Given that that's the case, do you think that a psychologist being critical of incels might have some of the same chilling effect? And would, again, we be okay with limiting the speech on social media platforms such as Twitter that are considered to be anti-incel?
I think we're probably just going to end up answering this in exactly the same fashion as we've asked other what about questions, where we say it depends on the nature of the speech and if it's like done in a demeaning fashion, right? I think there is a significant issue actually with the public understanding of the incel movement and people like it, right? And its underlying black pill philosophy. And I think that if psychologists are going to engage with that subject, they need to have a much deeper understanding of it. And a lot of these people are people who need psychological help, and they need people who understand this phenomenon to treat them. I think that could be said to be something that's lacking in the psychological profession for sure. But in terms of their personal speech on Twitter, etc., yeah, if they're going out demeaning random people, calling them names, making armchair diagnoses, etc., doing anything that would be, would undermine their ability to do their fucking job, then yeah, you sign up to those restrictions of speech when you take a position of authority and power, and when you take a position that puts you in charge of vulnerable individuals' futures.
Wick, I have absolutely no problem with a psychologist exercising whatever insults, calling insults, whatever they want, criticizing any public figure, criticizing any group of people. I do not, maybe not any group of people.
I was about to ask. I was
Certainly
going to
there
name
are,
a few,
yeah,
but go
of
ahead.
course, and certainly to Vivian's point, there are absolutely, limits and extreme limits and all that. But generally speaking,
Okay, what are your limits? What?
Well,
Because
that's a good point.
you asked the line for
Yeah.
Viv on what speech would be acceptable or what speech would be allowable.
Would they
So
extend to
I asked-
neo-Nazi conspiracy theories?
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Like, where's your line? If Jordan Peterson started saying, "Well, I
Saying
don't
the
know if it was
N-word?
6 million people," would that be a problem for you? Should he be censured?
It certainly would be a problem for me.
Yeah, but
if Jordan Peterson started
worthy of
coming out and
censure?
saying, "I don't think 6 million,"
Yeah.
that would be a big problem.
So not
Do I think
necessarily
it would-
Holocaust denial, but like just neo-Nazi conspiracies in general.
Is the question, would the board be able to take away his license in that case? I think they'd have a much stronger case than they do now. I'll say that.
Okay, so
Well,
they should have taken it away ages ago.
Then
But
my
though-
question,
even
my
though the
question
Holocaust
specifically,
comment-
stop.
okay.
My question specifically, and
Yeah.
and alluded. Can you give us an example where you would not probably, but definitely should? Can you give us some examples where it doesn't have to be Peterson, it could be any psychologist, but where a regulatory body should say, okay, that's enough. What you said on social media is too far, and we're taking away your toy. Right?
My general perspective is everyone has the right to free speech, even the most horrible, absurd, Holocaust denial, crazy fucking shit. The more reprehensible it is, the more that they have a right to fight for it, which is what the ACLU's position was when they fought for Nazis to be able to march in Skokie.
Yeah, that was.
That's the right attitude. That's the right attitude to have. So, however,
What happened in Skokie, by the way, after that?
I don't know. But
Never
hold on,
mind.
we can get to that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I don't know what you're referring to. Maybe there's some interesting stuff there that I should be aware of. But hold on. What would he have to say? I don't know. I think the regulatory board
Is there
gave
any
the
tweet
exact
he could make?
Yes, the exact line. If it interferes with the ability to provide services. So, like, for example, if Peterson said the proper way to diagnose someone's mental illness is through phrenology, by putting your fingers on their face and measuring stuff, I'd say, you know what? That seems to be at odds in such a severe way with the board that regulates him and clearly relates to clinical services. It's not like a political speech or a comment or like a specific demeaning accusation. Then you'd have a pretty reasonable case. I'd say, you know what? If Peterson is saying you can diagnose people by putting your fingers on their face, I'd go, I probably wouldn't participate on this panel. How about that? I wouldn't be on the let's defend Peterson side if that's what he was saying, because I think that'd be absurd because it interferes with the ability to render services. But other than that,
Sorry, go ahead.
you know, I don't know.
So I think
It's
by
a
that
hard one.
standard, Holocaust denial would be fine then. If he's a therapist, if he's a psychologist, you can be the best psychologist in the world, but still go and deny the Holocaust all day on Twitter.
I know that would be wildly unfortunate.
You wouldn't be able to. You would find it hard to provide services to.
I
Jewish people, wouldn't you?
absolutely believe that any
It would undermine faith in the profession from Jewish people and indeed anybody who finds the Holocaust to be.
Here's what I think would happen. I think any person who denies the Holocaust in my worldview, is doing so is indicative of mental illness. So if someone were to do that, I think the likelihood that
Well, I think I'm going to revoke.
they would
the
find
fucking
other
psychologist license.
underlying mental health issues with that person is probably pretty high, and that would interfere with their ability to render services.
I
But
think everybody's
theoretically,
fucking
let's
mentally
do
ill,
a you want to do
frankly.
a, you want to do a complete hypothetical trolley problem level divorce from reality. If someone if someone denied the Holocaust, and that was the only terrible thing they've ever said, which is the most terrible thing you could possibly, well, there's many terrible things you could say. But like
Yeah.
if it could be demonstrated that it in no way interfered with rendering services, I still wouldn't go along with it because I don't believe in that hypothetical. It's a stupid hypothetical.
I was going to say it doesn't,
okay.
right? So what you said, so doing that on social media would interfere with his ability to provide.
You know what?
Right?
I'll bite the
Why?
bullet here and say yes. If Jordan Peterson
Why?
tomorrow denied the Holocaust,
Okay, but why? Why does it? Why does it?
well,
Why
for
does
the
it
reasons I
interfere
just
with
gave. Because if someone denies the Holocaust,
Uh-huh.
that is indicative of them being mentally ill to some degree. Do you agree?
Okay, but
No?
mentally ill people can still be psychologists, and no, I don't agree.
You don't. Well, which is it?
Well, it's both. I don't agree with. I don't agree
Okay, you're
with
right.
the
You're right.
idea
Mentally
that
ill
you
is very
can't be
broad.
a.
I would say
don't
if
agree
someone
with the idea
denies
that
the
you can't be a.
Holocaust,
I don't agree with your conclusion that you're driving to that you can't be a psychologist if you're mentally ill, right? I think
you're right. I should read.
plenty
You're
of
right. Let
psychologists
me.
out there with anxiety disorders and shit, and actually
So
having
let me read.
experience and dealing with
Yep.
these conditions is very useful.
Let me clarify what I meant.
Okay, fine.
If someone denies the Holocaust,
Uh-huh.
it is evidence that they're mentally ill. Sure.
No, I don't think it is.
I don't
What's
agree with
more?
that,
What's
no.
more? It's
Yeah.
evidence that they're
Weren't most of the
severely
Nazis
mentally
like
ill.
completely sane? Weren't the people who perpetrated the Holocaust like quite normal psychologically?
Were they the ones denying it, or were they the ones perpetrating it?
I feel like they
think
probably lied
was
about a
Hit-
lot of things.
Was
and they
Hitler
probably believed a lot of
denying? Actually, he
disinformation.
was lying. It. Hold on, we're talking about
Yeah,
two
they
different.
did deny it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
they
don't
denied
know,
it.
actually, yeah.
They also
Okay,
lied a
stop.
lot about
Hold on,
Jews.
no, no,
Yeah.
hold on, no,
They did
this is
deny it,
bullshit.
yeah.
I'm going to clarify.
I
right
want to
here.
keep
A
my
lot of-
channel
a lot of-
monetized.
Stop, because this is okay. This is why
A lot of them denied
if
it.
Loner's going to literally make that fucking disingenuous little joke there. Like that's
Was that
What? No,
disingenuous?
how is it
What's
disingenuous?
disingenuous?
They
when we talk
immediately,
about
they immediately
Holocaust
denied
denial,
it.
we're referring to like what?
Yeah,
Nick
we're referring to-
in
we're referring to modern
2023,
nation.
right? I'm not talking about Nazis.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
I'm not talking about the
So,
Nazis in 1940.
think. Okay,
So that's
I
a
don't-
bullshit comparison
Okay,
that was
what
designed.
mental?
to
Okay,
get
what
me upset,
mental?
and it clearly
Okay,
works,
okay,
and that's on me.
okay.
So I
What
need to
mental
calm down,
illness?
everyone.
Sorry, Viv,
what
can I just
mental illness?
engage with what he said to me? Because
Please do.
Go ahead.
the point you're trying, I'm guessing you're trying to say Holocaust denial is a sign of mental illness because it's
In
an insane conspiracy.
2023,
Yeah, I'm guessing you're saying that, and the thread there is that I'm guessing you're saying is because it's an insane conspiracy theory, right?
I would label it an insane conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
maybe,
that's why it's a sign of mental illness to believe it.
Hmm.
among other things.
Do you think the Nazis? They believed a lot of insane conspiracy theories. So why would they not be? But
True.
they weren't
Like what?
generally mentally ill. That the Jews were trying to take over the world by using banking and finance and fucking world domination and like international Zionism to try and destroy the German Volk. That's what
Mate,
they
a
believed.
significant
Jews were
number
responsible
of
for most of the
Nazis.
crime. That Jews were raping loads of fucking women. That they were responsible for Marxism. They were responsible for communism. They were going to fucking assail Germany from both sides by infiltrating British and
Yes,
Russian
all of
politics.
that's bad. In case anyone's clear, that's all bad. We all
Oh my
agree on that.
fucking
right?
God.
Yeah, they
Stop,
believed a lot of
stop.
conspiracy theories. Is my point. Yeah, they believed a lot of insane
the-
conspiracy
it's-
theories that you would
it's how
consider makes them
insane
mentally ill,
conspiracy.
but they generally weren't mentally ill.
I would.
really.
Okay,
A lot of Nazis believed they were descended from a race of fucking people who lived
You're right, you're
inside
right.
the
There's-
earth and granted them special
Okay.
powers.
okay.
Fucking-
I'm saying a like 22-year-old who lives on 4chan who denies the Holocaust is mentally
Right,
ill. I don't know.
no,
How is this
they're
a
not-
contentious
they're-
position?
No, they're not mentally ill. They're indoctrinated. They're existing in an information
Fair
bubble in
enough.
which
You're right.
in
We're
which
using,
the-
I'm using mental illness as a vague term, and maybe I shouldn't be using it. But you're asking for what? You're asking for why I would say if Peterson or anyone started saying, if a psychologist started saying the Holocaust didn't happen,
if one person tells you the Holocaust happened and then 20 people tell you it didn't, right? In a total fucking vacuum, and you have nothing else to go on, you're probably more likely to believe that 20 people. That doesn't make you
yeah,
mentally
and if
ill.
you're a yes,
Right.
okay, but okay, if that's the situation, then you definitely shouldn't be a clinical therapist because why are you in a vacuum where most of the people you talk to are telling you the Holocaust didn't happen? There's no way you're going to set up some hypothetical
So you
where
can get
someone
your
can
license
deny the
revoked for being in
Holocaust.
an echo chamber, or
Yeah.
do you think
No,
the people
that's not
who
what I
failed?
said. That's not
Do you
what I
think the
said.
people who failed the Ash conformity experiment are mentally ill? The people who say the
I don't know,
lines are
what
the
is
same length
ash,
when they're.
what is the ash conformity?
You're shown one line and then 3 other lines, and then they ask you which line
Oh, right.
is
The other
of A,
people
B,
say
and
it
C
out
is the same
loud
as I.
first.
And most people say they'll
everyone
go
else
with the
says.
answers of the plants. Yeah. But are those people mentally ill, or are they just answering
No.
because of group pressure?
No, of course not.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's great. So there's, yeah. You don't have to be mentally ill to believe in insane conspiracy theories.
I agree,
right?
of course
You
not.
can be perfectly. You can be perfectly
But Jim, my
entirely
point
sane.
was,
right?
and I'm surprised that
I
the two
think
people.
relevant to the point is that, like, while Jordan Peterson, as far as I know, isn't a Holocaust denier, there are other insane.
As far as I know, you're
conspiracy
not a
theories
Holocaust
he believes in.
Can I ask?
Well,
Can I ask one of
nice.
them, Viv? What's your go-to when we're talking about Jordan Peterson and insane conspiracy theories? What's your go-to? Give me an example of insane conspiracy.
You know what the funniest one was? When he posted on Twitter about those fucking about the Chinese sperm farm, the communist sperm farm that he believed was
Peter should
happening with
Peterson.
Oh,
people.
the
Yeah,
Chinese
everybody
milking farm?
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was just a random.
That was a
clip of
great
fetish
day.
porn. That was insane.
It was
That was
fun.
based.
Yes, of course it's a
Wait,
conspiracy.
wait.
That never
Oh, isn't it?
happens, gang.
Isn't it a sign? Isn't it a sign of a particularly fucking sick mind to believe that is the case? That is
Nope.
true.
I think he
Side of
does.
a
No,
boomer.
Mind.
Boomer on Twitter. Boomer
Yeah.
who doesn't understand Twitter or memes. That's what it's.
He legitimately thinks like far leftists have like some secret conspiracy to like take over the world and like it does. He is
Okay, so
wrong.
here's
Wrong.
the most insane thing that Jordan Peterson believes. Jordan Peterson believes that his wife had a vision gave to her by God that he was sent to save the world, and that is what he's trying to live up to.
Wrong.
He said it.
He doesn't believe in God. He says he doesn't believe in
What are you
God. He
talking
acts
about?
like God. He said he
Bullshit.
acts like God exists.
Mate,
Huh?
he literally said to
Mate,
not one time,
mate,
but he does
he
also say
literally
he
said
believes
to
in
Matt
God.
Brown, you can't
Cat.
give up smoking without divine intervention. What are
No,
you
that's
talking
wrong.
about? What do you mean that's wrong?
No, I saw that debate with Matt Dillahunty. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's wrong.
he said the magic mushrooms were evidence of a divine intervention to stop smoking, wasn't it?
Listen, I'm more than
Yeah,
happy to have a
that's exactly
conversation about the metaphysics of reality, but I don't think this is the panel for that.
Jordan Peterson absolutely
sure?
believes in at least some divine presence, and
I
pretty
believe in
much
some divine presence.
it pretty
Does
much
that make
is
me
just a Christian. Sorry, does that make it makes you religious, motherfucker?
Well, everyone's religious, as Peterson has pointed out. But
Wow.
again, not the panel for this.
How about
Well,
this? How about this?
well,
How about this? How about this? How
Vic,
about this? I want to
we'll
respect
debate
everyone's
anyone
time.
on that topic. Everyone is religious, indisputable.
We okay.
We'll debate
No.
anyone
Oh,
anytime.
okay.
on that topic.
I didn't get to say like where my line
Only
was
if
on
you
the previous.
Yeah.
I want to hear. Okay,
The only
super-
Canadian hasn't even gotten to say it.
I
I'm
know.
gonna say like I'll bite
Red,
the
where's
bullet.
your line? Where's your line?
I'm okay with a psychologist doing Holocaust revisionism on Twitter, but I want it more to present the entire profession as a lot of individual different people with lots of individual different beliefs. If it presents it that way, then no matter what any one psychologist does, it doesn't reflect on the profession as a whole.
That's the right take.
For
Base
that
take.
reason, I don't care what they say, really.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
wish I was as
it's-
brave as
it's-
you.
Gang.
It's a weird that profession is
inspired
like
me.
so much like a bad apple spoils the bunch, and like any other profession, we're like, they're all different people doing different things.
That's
like,
not true. We do this with cops, politicians, almost every profession. People.
Yeah,
will complain.
we
I mean,
do,
this is
but
something
like
that happens all the time.
I do think it's a weird thing to apply to this one, though. That is
Fair
that
enough.
is fair.
Fair
though.
enough. I will say this. This is gone in many different directions. None of which I
Bro,
expected.
you guys need to Google Jordan Peterson wife prophecy, okay? And just
I know
fucking
exactly what
go
you're referring to.
through this
I
Listen.
do not. I will
Right.
Google that after this, but I
How
want
many,
to
how many
respect everyone's
mushrooms have you
time.
taken, Kat?
He believes
wanna
his
respect-
So
wife
you've
has
taken
dreams-
psychedelics, you cannot criticize
He
psychedelic
believes-
visions.
He believes his wife has dreams that predict the future.
Have
not
you
just-
taken psychedelics, Vivian?
Can you
Kat?
prove she doesn't?
Yes, I have taken psychedelics, and
Not
I do
enough.
not.
Clearly
I
not
do-
enough.
I
do
haven't
not believe-
taken enough psychedelics to be on this.
Clearly
panel.
not.
Gang,
Clearly not
it's
enough
been a
to
great
lose my
time.
mind to the point where I believe that dreams predict the future. No.
Okay, it's
Well,
been a
you
great
take
time.
A few more
I've
grams and-
enjoyed all.
Okay, if
I
you
don't know
believe
if enjoyed the
okay,
right word.
no, tell me, do you believe your dreams can predict the future? Just
I'm not gonna.
Do you
end
believe
it.
that?
I believe no wise person would answer that until they've taken 7 grams of psychedelic mushrooms.
Okay, well, we
I-
can all
I-
tell you
well, I
what.
think
We'll
you're-
all,
I
next
think you're
time we all
fucking-
have a panel
you're
together, and I
fucking-
have this exact lineup. We'll all take some.
Have you ever
shrooms
considered
beforehand.
doing a panel where everyone's on shrooms?
No,
Wick?
that would be unethical.
I refuse to do
okay.
that.
Yes.
I
So-
already say no.
Unethical?
Well, it would be
I'm never
unethical.
doing-
Yes,
I'm
I
never
think
doing
that it would be.
psychology.
It'd be high risk, high
inappropriate.
reward is how I would put it.
Inappropriate. Maybe not unethical, but inappropriate for me. Okay, so gang, it's been fun. It's
How's
been
it?
something, but I want to
It's
respect everyone's time. I know some people have some places to go. We're not ending, right? We are giving outros. The stream will go on. We will continue for a little bit because I want to talk about this some more. Maybe have some call-ins or something. We'll do that. But I want to give everyone a chance to shout themselves out, tell people where they can find them, etc. And we'll start with our friend Lonerbox. Go ahead.
I was going to think of an opening statement in my head, but I feel like I've said everything. I'm Lonerbox. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, whatever the fuck. Been nice doing a panel with you guys. I love you all, and you, Wick.
Do you? Thank you for being here. I hope you come back. PFJung. Go ahead.
Closing statements.
Yeah.
I learned a lot on this panel. I learned a lot about other people, but I learned a lot about myself, and I should probably not I should not allow a fucking animated cat to make me so upset. That's what I learned going forward.
Hey,
Same.
self-discipline. It's a base concept. Young, thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
I live at 2943 Westchester.
On the internet.
PFJung on YouTube. Sorry.
PFJung on YouTube. Go check him out if you like his takes, gang, or if you hate his take and you wanna hate watch. That's okay too, I'm sure. Next up, Red. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Red. I've got a channel on Twitch. Red talks about stuff. Same on YouTube, and I talk about stuff like this. Believe it or not. And I'm also going to tell people tomorrow.
Talk about stuff like this.
I'm also going to tell people tomorrow that I fought with a cat for 2 hours tonight. So
The best cat on Twitch.
the best cat on Twitch. I will say that though.
Nice.
Okay, well, thank you. Go check him out, gang. At Red talks about stuff on Twitch. Thank you for coming, and I hope you had fun.
I did.
Up,
Thanks for having me for my
course.
first time out. Yeah.
Next up, Vivian.
I mean, I think Jordan Peterson's a fucking lunatic and should never have been fucking licensed anyway, or at least not since 2016. I mean, fucking hell, what a fucking twat. Anyway, I'm VivianWulf. You can find me at VivianWulf on Twitch and YouTube. I'm an anti-fascist historian and cult researcher, and I have the best takes, and I'm the smartest person that you've ever seen on this platform. Everybody else is a fucking dumbass, some more than others. Lonerbox is all right.
Lonerbox getting the seal
True.
of kitty approval from Vivian. Gang,
He
thanks
still
for
has
being...
he still has some dumb takes. Don't
enough.
fucking don't.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think
gotta have at
we
least
all
a
have dumb
couple.
takes. Time to
Don't let
time.
him off, except me.
What we have coming up tomorrow, I'm trying to set up a talk with Eudaimonia about the Conservative Party. Is it dead? We are definitely going to be talking, but if he doesn't come through, we might be talking about Burning Man tomorrow. I might just have call-ins tomorrow. We'll find out. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring is the answer to that question that you didn't ask. On Monday, we are going to have on Todd, and we're going to have on Lactoid, and we're going to have on Josiah, perhaps more, talk about the Republican Party and the state of the Republican Party in America today. So that should be an interesting discussion. Check us out, tune in. Gang, if you like this content, hit that like button, that subscribe button. If you're watching this on Twitch, remember you get 30% off of gift subs. So give some subs, give me some money. It would be great. It would be nice. It would be wonderful. And thank you all for being here. Until next time, my friends. You can all leave if you'd like.
This is a good time for panels for me, by the way, Wick. You should do more panels at this hour and invite me when the topics that I give a fuck about.
I will invite you more often, Vivian.
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
I'm entertaining.
As always.
Right?
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed it. Everyone else. I know Loner. It's a little frustrating. I thank God I didn't have 6 people on this panel. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm
Don't do
glad
it.
I limited it to
4-person
4.
panels are like more enough. For a structured panel, you don't want like 7, 8, 9 people. It just turns into a
No, but
complete.
not everyone
Fuck.
is as verbose as all of you, and so
Well,
I
they shouldn't be
knew
Twitch streamers then.
I know
That's
with,
the
I knew
fucking
with
point.
Vivon,
Yeah,
Talk.
that's true.
I know with Vivon, and I knew with Young on that I would have plenty of content.
My God, that motherfucker never shuts up, does he?
Neither of you shut up, to be clear. Like
Whoa.
neither of you do. But yeah,
I
gang,
had to bring up the
gang, if
notebook
you've
for
been
it,
watching
goddamn.
this and you wanna opine and you wanna jump backstage, now's the time. We'll keep going for another 20 minutes at least.
All right.
So if you
Thank you, Wick.
Yep. See you later, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
Nice
you've,
meeting all you
uh,
guys.
Are we going to some kind of open, or are we all
Yeah,
just
we're going
fucking
open. You can fuck off if you like. But I'm gonna open it up for a little bit and see if anyone wants
Oh,
to.
I can stay.
Yeah, if you want.
Oh, okay. I'll stay then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Wick.
Of
I was
course.
definitely nervous at the start, but I think I found my feet after a bit.
I'm glad you
Don't
did.
be nervous. I don't hate you. I disagree with you.
Yeah, no,
No.
same. I appreciated the conversation.
People often
Conflate.
say I'm intimidating. I think is the word that gets used occasionally. I'm not.
I've also heard
They
that.
will say-
I
they will-
got told I
they will
was
say other
scary.
things.
Yeah,
They
and I'm
will-
like,
they
I
will say
don't.
Well,
I can see
mean,
it. I can see it, Red. If I was walking down like a dark street at night and I turn around and I see you following me, I'd be a little frightened. I would. I'd be like, "What the hell? It's a redhead? What's going on? Fucking
A ginger in this area?
Thought we
Crazy.
got rid of him."
whoa.
No,
Okay, but
it
Cam
ain't the
Peterson say
Canadian
that
too,
on
that's
Twitter.
really bad. I have a lot of Canadians in my audience. I've discovered this recently. Most of my audience, in fact, most of the people watching right now, most of the people in my Discord are Canadian. And I
Yeah,
don't know how
lots
I
of
feel
your-
about
Why?
that.
Lots of your audience is like in the same city as me, which is crazy.
Like,
Jesus, I would be terrified.
is that like a
These people are fucking
I-
lunatics.
should
Have
I
you seen
move there?
Victorian?
Like, should I start a cult? Like, if you're all geographically centered, maybe I can like bring them together and start this like fucking.
No starting
you know-
cults.
Damn.
right?
No,
Plus,
your
we live in
community is very cool, though.
we live in the internet age where you don't even need to be localized to start a cult. I
True.
think it's arguable that certain internet fandoms meet the definition of cult as well. Anyway,
Well, we were talking a little bit in my Discord about someone saying that they've never been to church. And I said, if you've seen a streamer, you kind of been to church. You have someone preach to you for a specific amount of time, 1 to 2 hours, maybe more, and they ask you for money and donations. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. That's church by my definition. It's church by
Maybe.
my- Does no one want to call in today? Does no one have any fucking thoughts? Are you guys just like in chat, just chatting away, just talking about all sorts of things?
I don't know if you really advertised it particularly well. If you guys wanna come scream at us, tell us we're wrong or dumb or how much Jordan Peterson's like this amazing fucking prophet, then get in backstage in the Discord.
Oh God,
And you can do that. Yeah, Goldbane, you can.
I definitely
do
wasn't
it.
wrong. I was right about everything I said.
Yeah,
Big Nick, you
click
can
the-
come and call me wrong and dumb to my face. I'm only reading chat right now. If you
Yeah, click
Yeah.
the button, click the link, accept the rules, and then jump backstage. It's at the top of the server, and you can come in and we'll talk to you, Goldbane. Go ahead. It's a free open panel, no slurs. If you do anything to
Yeah, It's a really
to,
weird position to be defending Peterson while also just like hating him with all my soul.
I mean, he's a fucking monster. He should have lost his license.
He is.
ages
He
ago.
100%
I don't know.
is a
He's got absolutely no interest in like engaging in clinical practice. Why the fuck does he even have a license?
I
You
think,
know?
yeah, like I honestly think that the college, if they really wanted to like get rid of his license, they had a much stronger case than they presented.
I don't
And that
think
was,
they
like, my
did. I
main
don't think
issue.
they did. I think they're like getting all these fucking complaints, and they're like, well, like we've got to do something to like rein him in a little bit because he's just acting like a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, like I
and
think that's
he
what they
won't
want to
even
do.
he won't even accept the tiniest bit of, hey mate, can you just put the brakes on a little, you know? And it's
Yeah,
like
Is he actually losing his license? I don't, because I guess that's the
No,
it's
not
like,
yet.
there's
he
like
hasn't
two
lost
more.
it
He
yet.
said-
He's just
No, there's like 2 more steps. He keeps saying
Yeah.
he's like, I tweeted about Trudeau, and now they're taking my license. But it's like that he has to do the course, and if he doesn't do the course, then he like gets this one allegation from the
It'd be
college.
like a
And if
disciplinary
that goes,
hearing and
yeah,
shit. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and if that
disciplinary
goes
stuff, yeah.
farther, there might be disciplinary actions. There's like 3 Mays before like losing
Yeah.
license in the report. Yeah.
Kind of like getting put in jail for misgendering somebody.
Yeah, it's like
It's
he's
not-
blowing a slap on the wrist into like this giant thing because he's farming it. Like,
I
let's be
think,
honest, he's farming it.
I'll say
Monster-
this. I am
monster-
sympathetic to the position that
Well, yeah, of course you are. Your
agents-
entire business model relies on people being able to say horrific fucking shit in public.
I mean, if it like it obviously doesn't work out that well for me. I'm pretty broke, but I think that it is useful, to hold certain beliefs
Yeah,
instead of
100%.
having them mask up. I'd rather they just tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Like, don't try to.
To be fair, again,
obfuscate
it wasn't his beliefs; it was his conduct. But
Well, what's the
There was no
fundamental
belief that they
difference?
said.
Does your belief not influence or dictate your conduct to a certain extent, and is not your conduct
Yeah, well, he's
indicative
not
of
going to
your
call that
beliefs?
person a criminal if he doesn't have certain beliefs, but he can word it in a different fashion.
I don't know. I come from a weird background. Like, I used to do stand-up comedy, so like I just like however the subject is presented, I don't care. Only the subject matter of the sentence matters to me. If that makes sense. Like, I don't like the tone doesn't matter.
The Big Nick play Domino on stream. I'll pay you. How much we talking, buddy? Anyway, I don't think anyone's calling in, gang. I don't know why.
Fucking bunch
They're
of
afraid.
absolute
They're
cowards.
afraid.
They're
Man,
talking
there's a
shit
lot
all
of people
around.
popping off in chat today. I mean,
Yeah.
not like we didn't have any viewers. We had about over 100 on all platforms combined, right? Like we had about
Oh, shit.
150 or so. So I don't know why no one's calling.
They're fucking cowards, yo.
Yo, the Big Nick, how long am I gonna play? Depends how long you pay me for, right? Like, look, here's the deal.
What
If
what
you
is
give me
Domino?
enough money, there are only a few things I won't do. So nothing toss. Okay, I'm not gonna do anything toss related. I'm not gonna kill my business model. But if you want me to read your super chats, if you want me to play a game, if you want me to do a specific topic, people have paid me to do that in the past. I have been paid money to do a specific debate on a specific topic, and I could absolutely do that. Might be a little out of your price range, but it's something that I offer. It's a service I provide. If you want me, I don't know, to sing a song, dance for you, I will. Fair enough. Lonerbox, it's been a while. I wanted to ask you, since you're here.
Yeah.
What do you think? So you mentioned the whole Scotland thing, and I've never really talked about you on your views on Scottish separate. Can you elaborate a little?
What, my views on Scotland separating from the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's based. The UK government is just not politically the same as Scotland and hasn't been for a very long time. They are a lot more right wing than us. They just don't value like quite the same things that we do. And for example, one of the things was that we tried to pass quite a progressive piece of legislation in regards to trans rights, with regards to self-ID, like legal self-ID. And the UK government actually used, for the first time ever, its intervention to stop it. So, yeah, I feel like if we're going to legislate in different ways...
It was
Sorry?
shit. They dredged up some fucking archaic process and decided they were going to use it just to stop that one thing. Like, fucking insane, actually, given all the things that the Scottish Parliament have passed and without any issue. Yeah,
that is interesting to me. I confess I'm very ignorant on British politics in general. Isaac does stuff. You'll hop backstage in 3 minutes. Bring the fire, because if you suck, we'll kick you off and we'll just end the panel.
I full disclosure, I live in south of the Scottish border in the United Kingdom. I'm sorry for what my people have done. No, I'm a Mongol. I come from all over. But like, I fully support Scottish independence. If they want to be independent, they should be independent. I think there are reasonable questions around how Scotland will fare as an independent nation, but I think as part of the EU, they'll probably be fine. They also have all the fucking oil fields and shit, which is probably about the only reason that England really wants to keep them. Because the SNP pretty much sweep Scotland at the moment. I don't know how they're projected for the next election. What's going on with that?
It's not going to be as good.
Yeah.
Although I support the trans self ID thing, it wasn't popular in Scotland. The representatives liked it, but the people didn't. And the Sturgeon going and the financial scandal, it's not good. I think SNP will still be fine, but they're not gonna. It's not gonna be the entire landslide or we're not our voting system in Scotland is designed so that there shouldn't be a majority. It should be really, really hard to get a majority the way our voting system works. But they got one anyway, so I don't think we're getting that again. So it's going to be a bit more split. Some people are going to jump to the left. I think most Scottish national voters will go Conservative. So yeah, I don't know. But Conservatives are also fucking themselves too. So it's it's hard to tell.
It's also we have devolved governments here in the United Kingdom, right? Which is something that you don't really have in the United States.
Devolved
but you could
government.
probably
Can you find that for me?
you could probably compare it to something like fucking American Samoa or something, right? One of these non-states, American territories or whatever, but not quite. It's a different system. So Scotland has its own parliament, right? The Welsh has its own parliament. I forget what it's called. The 𝕻𝖎𝖙. I can't fucking pronounce it. I'm gonna do a Liz Truss. But so they have their own parliaments that are supposedly kind of ruled over by Westminster. I'm sure Lonerbox can fucking explain it a little bit better than I can. But some of their funding's allocated by Westminster, i.e. the English Parliament, right?
I'm gonna be real with you. I regret asking. This seems like a whole rabbit hole, and I'm it's my eyes are glazing over as we speak.
Okay. So the point is in relation to Scottish independence is that they have their own democratic process. They have their own things that they vote for, and they quite often vote in opposition to what the rest of the UK votes for. It's quite like Lonerbox said. It's quite clear that politically Scotland is a very, very different beast than the rest of the UK.
I'm gonna do the American thing where I may relate this to America to try to understand it. There's a lot of times in our federal government, right, that we have a national government, but we have individual states who hate how the country, the state of the country, and so they'll enact state or local laws that might be at odds in some cases. Is it similar to that, or?
Well, as a compromise for independence, some people said that Scotland should be a federal system, but we didn't get it. So we're a bit less than a federal system, but we have devolved powers. So England used to control everything in Scotland from Westminster, but now the Scottish Parliament gets to control certain levels of taxes, certain kinds of planning, tourism, energy, and all that. The English government can intervene if they think it clashes, like they did with the trans legislation. But otherwise, we have our own education system. We do it differently from England. It's free here. It's not free there. We have our own housing policy, kind of our own justice and policing policy. Our immigration policy kind of intertwines, so they can send border officials up here to take immigrants from here and fuck them up if they think they've done something wrong. So it's a bit less than a federal system, but yeah, we do have we've got our own parliament. So with just devolved powers.
Interesting to me. Okay, we have a caller. Isaac is come through. So Isaac, the stream rests on you. If you don't entertain me, we're gonna end it all. Night.
You don't have to go that far. Just turn the stream off, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hello.
If you come to Canada, Wick, we got made. So
I don't like made. Go ahead.
It's fair.
You really had to put that much pressure on me?
I do. What you got for us, sir?
Okay. So I feel like this didn't get covered as much with the Peterson thing. I'm more so concerned with how his conduct.
I like the tie.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm more so concerned with how his
motherfucker's got a HUD.
Sorry, I was playing Armored Core.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Base.
Who's controlling this NPC? Where are the dialogue options? Sorry.
I was more so concerned with how his conduct on Twitter might suggest his conduct between himself and patients. Because of his harmful conduct online, it might show people that he would be harmful to patients in private.
So Red
Not
screamed at me for bringing it up, but he was extraordinarily neglectful of his patients when he was starting to get famous, and there were a lot of complaints made about that. But now he doesn't have any patients.
Yeah, and I only
Right.
yelled at because you brought it up for no reason, just to be clear.
No, it's fine. I know you're a massive Jordan Peterson stan. There's no
I'm a
need.
huge Jordan Peterson fan. Yeah, for sure.
That might be true. That might be indicative. But in that case, wouldn't you want psychologist, just to stay on this a little bit, wouldn't you want the psychologist to be open and honest about that they aren't going to give a fuck about you, so that you can seek another professional out?
Well,
Exactly.
I think if you're a patient of that person, and they make a public statement that relates to you, right? The trans thing's a really good example. If you happen to be a patient of Jordan Peterson and he starts making these awful comments in public about people like you, and you're already in a vulnerable position. This is a person who has power over you, who you formed a relationship with, who you may have like divulged some really fucking personal stuff to. I think that comes down to like welfare of the people in his care currently.
You think it's better for them to just never find out that they have this, or like have it come out like way later in the session by accident or something though? Like I don't know. I'd rather that come out sooner than later.
I think there is an argument to be made that like people who express intense bigotries, racism, transphobia, homophobia, etc., just should not be in charge of any vulnerable person, right, or in a position of power over people that they might be bigoted towards, right? I don't think they should be on the police force. I don't think that they should be teachers. I don't think that they should have childcare or ambulance workers or whatever, right? There was an ambulance worker we exposed a little while ago, long time ago now, actually, who was a podcaster on The Daily Shower, which just by the title you should realize is a terrible fucking thing, who started telling these mock stories. He said it was just a joke about using bigger needles than necessary on black patients in order to make them squirm in pain, right? Really awful shit, right? So like when somebody's in a position of power over somebody, especially if they're in a vulnerable state, they're a child, they're injured, they're mentally ill or whatever, I don't if they express any kind of bigotry publicly, I think they shouldn't be in that fucking position. But there's also the argument, I'm sorry, I know I've ranted a little bit, but there's also the argument that like if you are indeed a professional, you can act in a professional manner towards people regardless of your own personal political beliefs, right? If those political beliefs happen to be that certain classes of people are subhuman, yeah, you just shouldn't be in the fucking job. But if you're talking about just general kind of like political opinions that people might find objectionable, then I think that there's an argument to be made that you can keep that professional shit, keep that personal shit to yourself and do your job as a professional, right? If you're a doctor, if you're a doctor and you vote Republican, you should treat Democrat voters exactly the same, right?
I agree.
And you expect that doctors would, right?
Isaac, go ahead.
That's exactly why I think. Sorry.
I was going to say I mostly agree. I don't think my net would be cast quite as wide to all of those professions. But I definitely think a mental health care provider, they shouldn't be, as you said, bigoted in any way. And as for what
go on, finish your point, but
okay. As for what you said, wouldn't it be better if they knew and then they should be allowed to make their own decisions? It's like, well, not everybody is going to research their therapist beforehand, and also there are a lot of mentally unwell people that might not be in a position to make the best choice for themselves either. So that's an issue.
It's also, if you've ever been on fucking, like, if you've ever met any fucking trans person who was raised on 4chan, okay, it's a real fucking problem, internalized transphobia, etc.
Yeah.
The idea that just because your therapist expresses some bigotry towards the minority group that you're a part of, that you would instantly go, oh no, I don't want anything to do with this person. There's a pretty good chance that especially somebody who's in a vulnerable position and trusts this person with their personal stuff and has been working with this person for a while, that they may take on some of those bigotries themselves, and that can cause serious fucking damage. I could show you.
And that's why I think, like,
oh, go ahead, finish. But
I just think the college has a much stronger case to go after Peterson on Bill. I think I said it wrong. Did I say C16? It's C16 or C18?
It's
The one that
C16.
added. It's 16, right? That added trans people as a protected class in Canada. I think they can like straight out go after him on that, on the Elliot Page tweet specifically. I think that one alone is enough to like to take his license away, just for the reason Vivian's saying. But I think like I would rather the free, like I'm weirdly like free speech absolutist, but like she's right that or they're right, sorry, that they should not be bigoted in any way or like be like super racist or like whatever have you.
I think no one's gonna say. I think everyone here can agree that we would like it if no one was bigoted or racist. I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with that. I don't think anyone's going to be like, "Oh man, I really miss the racists that were
Yeah, no, that's a moot point.
things
Rick.
like that."
That's a moot point. Why does everybody have to make these disclaimers? PFJung or whatever the
No,
fuck his name
I
was doing
understand
this all the time as well.
because
Disclaimer: I do actually think the Holocaust was bad. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Make your point.
Well, my
it's
point
easy to be
is-
taken out of context.
my point is, okay, my point is that I don't like this idea that we can't have bad, wrong, or even silly opinions if we are a professional or we can't express them.
That's not
I
what I
think-
said. That's not what I said. I said people who express bigotries towards people who could potentially be under their care, right? This is people who have power over other individuals and view them like unfairly negatively as a class, are prejudiced towards them, right? Surely this would you want like a black kid to be taught by a racist teacher or a fucking I don't know.
We
We have the
desegregated
problem
the
of that.
South in school systems, so that happened, right? We wanted them to be in the same system that the white kids were in for a reason, even though a lot of the teachers there were they had to be. They
But
had
you have
to
no
be
fucking choice. You had
forced
no choice
to
back
teach
then.
the children at the
Yeah,
point
you
of the
had no
gun,
choice.
right?
Okay, you had basically no choice back then, right? Like all the fucking white teachers were racist as shit. So if you're going to desegregate and you're going to have black kids in a school that has a white teacher, you're probably going to have a racist white teacher. But we don't live in that fucking society anymore, Wick. We live in a society where it's perfectly okay. You can fire the fucking racist teacher and find one who isn't racist, right? There's plenty of them.
Yes, but you will always have the problem of should we be, because the slope is actually slippery on what is bigotry, what is considered unprofessionalism, what is considered all these things. It changes over time, and it changes based on
Okay, do you agree that there is at least a
look, we
line?
can look at England as an example, okay, of
Do you
how
agree there's at least a line?
this is being pushed to the right. Right, that conservatives are engaging in institutional capture, where they are the ones that are getting to decide what is unprofessional. They are the ones that are going to decide what is racist, what is bigotry, and they will use that of like you're being bigoted against women in order to push transphobic and otherwise harmful views and to get people out of power.
Yes,
And
that's because
a terrible thing.
Yes, that's because they filled independent bodies, supposedly independent bodies, with their fucking stooges, right? But like, what I wanted to ask you is, do you not? I think we can take it back to a more simple point. Like, do you not think that there is a limit, right, on the views that can be expressed by a person and then have power over another individual? Like, if somebody literally just says, "I think black people are subhuman and have a reduced capacity for learning," should they be teaching black kids?
Yeah, I'm curious about what the line is there.
Give me a minute because I'm taking this question seriously and trying to consider
Does
the
that
line.
does that not present a significant risk to the children in their care?
Certainly. But I don't think we can
Is that
like
risk
we can mitigate
acceptable?
enough. Like I don't think that
How?
there are. So my point here is that there are.
Okay.
Well, we understandably hate that, and we understandably, and it is a bad thing. We have to understand that by creating mechanisms, creating processes to fix that bad thing, we can make the cure to be worse than the disease. And that is my concern, is that through creating these processes, creating these mechanisms in order to remove people from positions of authority, responsibility, or power based on beliefs and statements, not behaviors. There's this big distinction here, right? But based on beliefs and statements made publicly, that we can run into some really dangerous territory. I don't think it's out of pocket to say that. I think that's something that we can recognize, that in order to protect people who would have beliefs that maybe are not considered correct by society now, but will ultimately be
I still feel like you're dancing around the answer to the question. Do you think it's appropriate to have that person teaching children, having children under their care?
It's not appropriate, but it's more inappropriate to get rid of the teacher because of that.
So the school would have to keep a teacher who publicly identifies themselves as a teacher at that school, saying that they think black people have a lowered capacity for learning.
Have to? No. Should, yes, but they should also provide recourse for any student who does not feel comfortable in there, right? So if a student or if a family of a student does not feel
how will the student know? We're talking about we're talking about teaching kids here. Like the discrepancy between
the
how
parents would know, right?
I don't know if social media they might not find out.
Would know. I don't know if the parents
if the parents don't know, and if no one, like, how is this even being discovered if no one knows, right?
Because it's down because expression of belief, right, determines how people act. Wick. So if somebody says that if a teacher says, I believe a particular demographic, we use black people in the example, right? If a teacher says, I believe black people have a limited capacity for learning, right, and their job is to teach black people, then that is naturally going to inform the way they act with those people in the classroom, right?
It could, most definitely, yes.
No, it would, right? Because if you're a teacher and it wouldn't if they don't care about doing their job at all, right? And they just want to sit there. But if they want to do the job of teaching people, right, and it is their belief that a certain demographic has a limited capacity for learning, they are going to be trying to teach them in different ways than they would somebody who they believe has a better capacity for learning.
They might. Go ahead.
Do you think a doctor should be allowed to? Do you think a doctor shouldn't be reviewed if they say that if they go public and say that I'm a doctor, I believe vaccines cause autism?
Reviewed, I would think, certainly.
Or a journalist for the BBC who says, I don't think truth matters. I think we should I think it should be okay to lie about whatever serves your cause.
I don't think the government should remove a journalist for that.
Well, the BBC was a government-funded agency would be. So the BBC shouldn't be allowed to fire any of their journalists because they're government.
Again, Britain.
If they're government, definitely not.
Yeah,
that's weird. That's weird. That's where the government's controlling speech.
Yeah, the government should not be involved in them.
So
because what happens with that is what we see, where we have like what's happening in Britain now, institutional capture that leads to people that weaponization has happened, right? We see it happening in Britain right now.
Okay, so they're already doing it without those powers, right? But like,
what do you mean without those powers? They absolutely have those powers in Britain. The government has power to limit speech in Britain.
Sure, and the government have power to limit speech in the United States too, right?
To much less degree.
Okay, sure.
But the degree matters, right? The degree matters.
The point of what Lonerbox is saying is that, like, the BBC is essentially a state-funded, state media broadcaster, right? It's supposed to adhere to certain principles of impartiality, and that is generally kind of judged by Parliament and the public as to whether they're doing that and whether they get to keep doing what they're doing. And I personally think that Parliament and the public are doing a terrible fucking job of making that adjudication, but that's besides the point. If So they are essentially a government entity, right? To a greater or lesser degree, in as much as the Canadian Board of Psychologists are, right? And so what Lonerbox said is, if a journalist at the BBC comes out and says, I don't really give a fuck about truth, I don't think we should be telling the truth, I do not care. We should tell as many lies as we possibly can, right? If the journalist comes out and says that, your position is essentially the BBC cannot fire them because they are a government entity and they are firing somebody for a free speech opinion.
I think the issue with that is that while in this specific case, we could say, okay, that's pretty fucked up. What if this journalist said, I don't think that the things that the BBC is requiring me to say is the truth, but I'm going to say it anyway because
That's not
it's
the
my
hypothetical.
job.
You're proposing a different hypothetical to avoid
fair
answering
enough.
the first hypothetical. We're trying to
Yes,
establish if
because
there
I think
is
that
actually
hypothetical is
anything.
silly.
Okay, but it's a
It
hypothetical
doesn't happen.
because
It hasn't happened. What was that answer you gave to Young's hypothetical? That's not what happened. That's not what is happening. That's not what we care about.
So we use examples of things that have happened then, because someone who works for the NHS, a government body, lost his license because he said vaccines cause autism.
Yeah, I think that might have been an overstep by the government.
Okay.
an overstep by the government for a doctor.
Again, it's not
for a doctor to advise his because the doctor would be advising his patient.
Again, like, you are allowed to have opinions. Now, if we were judging about what is he doing, right? If you can point to where he has failed his practitioners, like through some kind of malpractice suit or something like that, that's different.
He's already done it. He's publicly stated as a doctor with the NHS.
Okay, publicly being wrong is not doing harm to your patients.
No, will you shut up for half a fucking second, boy? Listen, he's publicly fucking stated, right, in his capacity as a fucking doctor with the NHS, right, that vaccines cause autism, right? That is a statement which can lead people to not seek vaccines, right, for their kids, placing their children at significant risk and placing the public at significant risk of the recurrence of previously, fucked off diseases like polio and shit that we're seeing a resurgence of elsewhere, right?
Yeah. This goes back to like what Young was saying about like the service that they're providing as part of NHS, right? Like, I think like, unless they have like some sort of like verifiable study that like backs what they're saying to some degree or something, but
I think the problem is
that's pretty unarguable. That, like, I don't know.
Like, is he refusing to admit? So here's the problem. Here's what happens, and if you can let me elucidate. So what will happen when we implement policies like this is, once institutional capture happens in America, when people say, hey, trans kids need gender affirming care because it's helping to save their lives, someone will say, actually, no, that's misinformation, so you're fired.
But Wick, we could imprison people for punching people in the face. What happens when the wrong party gets into power and uses this power to imprison people for punching people in the face, to imprison them for saying they don't like Twinkies, right? Like, what happens?
That's disanalogous. Because if you are punching,
you see this happen, because it's been the case for a long time that institutions can fire people for saying things that like aren't in line with whatever they're trying to promote. So, but where's it go? Where's the slippery slope though? Where's it go? We've been doing this for like decades. Where's this going though?
Do you think we are more free today, speech-wise, than we were, I don't know, 20 years ago?
It depends on in what capacity. I think communists are more free to speak than they were a few decades ago. Yeah. Just depends on
I guess that this does, like,
the UK probably. I will say the UK probably not, because of
yeah,
like all the fucking
I was about to say
Twitter
this is
non-crimes.
regional,
Yeah.
right? This is definitely a regional thing. But I would say that in America, which I'm much more familiar with, right, we are, I think, less free societally to say bullshit than we were 20 years ago. You are much more likely to get fired and much more likely to lose your job, position of power, or to be just canceled in general today than you were 20 years ago.
But are these caused by regulatory standards? I feel like that's more to do with like public pressure.
Well,
usually when people
at
get
least
fired
in
for like
America,
cancellations and shit.
at least in America, Um,
I think you're absolutely wrong. I think the problem you're having is that there are more people today that are likely to say the things that might get them fired, right? Because I think 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you would just be fired for saying you were a communist, for example, like Lonerbox said, right? And
that
nobody
was
would give a
bad.
fuck. Okay, so what you're saying is that the parameters have changed to a certain degree, where you don't now get fired for being a communist. You now get fired for saying racist or otherwise bigoted things, right? And do you know what? I actually think that that's an improvement, right? I would much rather people get fired for being racist than for expressing a view about a particular political ideology that isn't bigoted in any fashion.
But the problem with that is so many people who I would argue aren't actually racist get caught in this crosshairs because racist is so
Like
ill-defined
who?
and racist is so
People always say this, and then they can never bring up any examples of it actually fucking happening. Whenever we look into it, it always
Sure,
turns
I
out that
mean-
actually, yeah, the person did something or said something pretty fucking racist.
I
I think
mean,
there are a
yeah, if
few
you've
examples,
already
like the
decided
bodega
what they're
fucking boy
guilty,
was
you
a
can
bit
find
weird,
something they're
right?
guilty of. I mean, that's
I'm sure there's like one or two out there, but like it's not a regular fucking thing. And with any kind of system in which we have like penalties for bad behavior, there are going to be innocents caught up in it. But that doesn't mean we do away with the system entirely.
I mean, but we do a justice system to make sure that less people are caught, right? And so one of those adjustments is
Not
saying,
really.
hey, simply because you express an opinion, again, I'm not saying behaviors. If a doctor was refusing to administer vaccines, that's a different story. But if a doctor says, I think vaccines cause autism, I think they should be allowed to say that opinion without
Well, since
getting
you're
fired.
talking about slippery slopes, then Wick, can you not see the perfect slippery slope with what you just said about doctors, right? Like, what's the world look like when a doctor can just do their job in the day and then go on social media and use their status to give whatever medical advice they want? We all know that there's quite a bit of money in doctors using their credentials to promote anti-vax shit, right? Like, this would just be like like what a perfect hustle. You get your doctor certification. You go do your job, and then at night you just like sell fucking snake oil with your credentials and just be fine, right?
So again, it's one of those things where we allow people to do bad things because to try to prevent them from doing these bad things would lead to worse outcomes. And my argument
I think that doctor getting fired is a much better outcome than decreasing the rate of vaccination in the United Kingdom. What do you think? What do you think is better? A few doctors getting fired for saying vaccines cause autism, or a bunch of people dying from meningitis and fucking polio? What do
you
you
would
reckon?
have to
happened.
demonstrate
Vaccine
that them
hesitancy
going
went
on
way up.
that them going on social media and saying vaccines cause autism has led to a significant decrease in people getting
It did
vaccinated.
happen.
It literally
we had a
did
huge
with
problem with
Wakefield.
vaccine hesitancy in the UK because of this doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, wait, are you talking about Wakefield?
Yeah,
Is that
Wakefield.
who you're
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
not
Wakefield
familiar
was
with
the one who
UK enough
basically like,
to speak to this specific thing. right?
okay, but the whole vaccine hesitancy in the United States is like trackable right back to Wakefield and the campaign that was waged here in the UK. So you know, it's part of history that you should probably know about
Sure.
if you're going to.
And you know where the idea that vaccines cause autism comes from, right? It was a peer-reviewed study, I believe, in the 70s.
Andrew, yeah, it was Wakefield here in the UK. Yeah.
There was a study where he also committed malpractice doing it. He subjected kids to like unnecessary levels of interference. Yeah.
Well, the malpractice
Yeah.
thing, the malpractice
a
thing
whole
is a different
fucking
thing.
video
But
on
the thing that pushed up vaccine hesitancy was that he used his profile to go on TV and say, "I'm a doctor. I think vaccines cause autism." And then, what illness was it that got spread? Was it like
Measles,
mumps
I'm
or
pretty
measles
sure.
and shit? What was
I'm
it?
pretty sure it was measles. Yeah.
Yeah. A bunch of people got measles when they shouldn't have because the parents didn't want to give vaccines to their kids. Yeah.
Sure.
We started having measles outbreaks in schools. So some children were scarred for life, some children were disabled for life, and a few children died. So
That
what should have
sucks.
happened? Wakefield should have lost his job, or those children should have died.
Okay.
5,000 cases he was blamed for.
Would
apparently.
firing
Mumps.
him have solved that problem?
It would have at least removed some of the weight to his statements, right?
Maybe.
If
Or,
if he
see,
can
this
no
is the
longer
problem
go
with
on-
these things.
if
We
he can
don't
no
have a
longer go
crystal
on
ball.
television and
We
say-
can't know for sure. how these things would play out if it went differently. And we can make the argument that perhaps the government firing him could have given more weight to conspiracies and caused even more vaccine hesitancy. That is
Stop
a
saying the
perfectly
government. You're killing me with
reasonable argument
the
to make.
NHS who got rid of it. Not the fucking government. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Right? Or the NHS, like they're
By
hiding
Wick's
the truth. This
definition,
institution,
by
whether it
Wick's
be the government
definition,
or the thing,
government
is
is
hiding the truth. And so they're suppressing the truth that they don't want you to know. This is something we hear all the time, right? It
Yes,
feeds
we
into this
understand, but
oppressive
those are
narrative.
much less
So
than
again,
then
you have
other-
to
but then-
demonstrate, and I don't
but then
think you
other-
can,
but
that
But then
other-
also, other
other
doctors don't want to lie because they'll lose their licenses. So that's the other thing. Is you don't create this alternative industry of doctors where it's just like, yeah, you can do your doctor during the day, but by night you can go fucking mental, and you'll probably make a lot of money from it as well.
the chilling effect might be a point. I don't know.
I hate calling it the chilling effect when it's
It
like
is. It's the chilling effect. It's like
But
that's what
it's
it
not-
is.
it's not the
deterrence.
chilling effect.
You want to call it the deterrence? You want to call it deterrence? Or is
Well,
it
yeah,
not
because we're
really
talking about well, the chilling effect is usually like like applied to things like for example, Section 28 having a chilling effect on discussions around LGBT people, right? It's usually applied to stuff like that rather than like somebody engaging in outrageous fucking behavior, like the chilling effect on homicide, like.
You can just say
Yeah,
it's a good chilling effect, whatever. Like, yeah, I want
Yeah.
a chilling. I don't want doctors to go through all that to get that level of prestige and like authority, and then use it to fucking lie. Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I would like to chill that kind of behavior, I suppose.
Now
but
the problem with setting up something like that is if someone does find an issue in the current medical practice that are being advocated for and seen as correct,
Okay.
if they do find a legitimate issue,
Yeah.
they will be much less likely to come out and talk about
untrue.
that.
They can just do.
You say
they
that's
can
untrue, but it's absolutely true that this would
No,
happen. They would just
untrue.
shut the
Has
fuck
that
up because they don't want to
happened,
lose their
though?
job, and they don't want to
okay,
get fired
I'm saying-
by
I'm
rocking the
saying
boat. This
untrue.
happens all the
I was
time
gonna-
across the board in
Rick,
all professions.
Rick, I was going to give you. Okay, so you're absolutely right, actually, right? And like, people consistently lose funding, for example, for expressing leftist opinions in academia. That happens an awful lot, because the rich people who fund them don't want to give them money when they're fucking talking anti-capitalist shit. But like, but what you're talking about, right? Andrew Wakefield presents the paper. It takes a while for the paper to be debunked and for evidence to come out that he's basically talking out his fucking ass, right? And during that period, I'm fine with him like remaining a doctor. Okay, it's like unfortunate, but there does have to be a certain degree of like investigative process, an academic process where we like check up on this shit. I would say that the paper should have just been investigated better when it was first fucking published and debunked initially, but that doesn't always happen. But once it's been determined that this is irresponsible behavior, then that's when they lose their license. If a person has doubts about a particular medical treatment, they can do research into that medical treatment. They can say what that research seems to show, right? Like we don't necessarily have a problem with that. It's when that research is shown to be like morally dubious methodologically, fucking hell, methodologically suspect, right? That we then go, there is no evidence behind the claims that you are making, and they represent a significant risk of harm to the public, right?
I think if again with Wakefield, if he had fabricated data, if he had committed fraud, then yes, fire him. But that's much different than simply stating an opinion on like fucking Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's like actual
Stating an
crime.
opinion by saying, I am a doctor.
Sure,
This is my
I'm a doctor
professional
on.
opinion. Right.
I go on Twitter. I'm a streamer or a doctor or whatever fucking
Okay, so he
profession.
doesn't. So they don't even need any studies or anything. They can't.
Sure,
like
they just
they don't.
say it.
No. You just
it
go
doesn't-
on Twitter. You say vaccines cause autism. Don't take the vaccine. Buy my brain pills. Okay, right, and sell brain pills on the side.
Oh,
That
he
was-
did sell an
Oh,
alternative
brain
vaccine, didn't
pills.
he?
He did sell
was
an
selling,
alternative.
yeah.
vaccine.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
Yeah, this guy sounds like a
I need to.
fucking,
What's this guy's name? I'm gonna watch some
weirdo.
videos.
And I guess Wick, it provides you no comfort to know that there are groups that will provide dissenting voices when these things happen. Like Peterson had the Canadian Constitution Foundation on his side, he had the Civil Liberties Association on
No,
his
it's
side,
good
so he
that
had
he did.
people
I mean,
make
the Civil
sure that his
Liberties
constitutional right to free
Association
speech was protected.
The
So
Civil Liberties Association are basically
Yeah.
just a bunch of nut job right wingers, though. Just saying.
the same way though, like if you're a doctor and you're just curious and you find information that goes against the consensus, like, as long as you can prove that your efforts were made in good faith, I don't think you're going to get in a Wakefield situation. Unless, has that happened in national health systems? I don't think that's ever happened in the NHS where someone's discovered something like, or had contradictory research and just got fired for it. It seems to be the case that in the UK, all these, like some of the most progressive countries in Europe, they've actually gone like backwards when it comes to the trans stuff. Now they're saying with
So,
puberty blockers, like
I can
they're
give you an
prescribing it
example
less
of
often than they
climate
did,
change.
but no one's getting like in trouble.
I don't know
for that,
about UK. I can't speak to the
Fucking
NHS
should be.
specifically, but
There's
I
a
can give
whole
you an
load
example
of
on
people
how this
fucking research
works.
behind that shit. A lot of it's based
Well, I
on the
guess I
fucking
can.
Littman study, for fuck's sake.
Mm.
Sorry.
But I can give you some examples of how this kind of plays out when it comes to Americans of medicine, psychology, science in general. So recently, there was an article published September 5th in 2023 on the Free Press, right? Called "I Left Out the Full Truth to Get My Climate Change Paper Published." And it's worth a read. You can go and decide whether this guy's blowing smoke up your ass or not. But the claim is that he often, this author, this scientist, published scientist to be clear, he's published in, I believe it's in Nature, which is a pretty prestigious publication.
Nature is the world's foremost
Yes.
interdisciplinary science journal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so this isn't just some fucking hack. So again, and he said, I
There are
got
some hacks
published
involved.
because I stuck to a narrative I knew the editors would like, and that's not the way science should work. And this is how it's happening and playing out in the American system, at least, is that they are saying they are leaving out purposefully information, full information, because if they don't leave that out, if they don't keep their mouths fucking shut, they don't get paid. Right? Because that's how publishing works, and that's how the publishing system works. You publish or perish. So this is happening right the fuck now, right? With all the, this is why I'm against what you're saying, because the slope isn't slippery. We're already fucking slipped there. We're already there. We are living in this world, right? And I don't want it to go further. We are living in a world where scientists will just keep their fucking mouths shut because they can't go against the narrative. Because if they do go against the narrative, they won't get published and they won't get paid. This is a problem.
Okay,
and I can link you the article if you like.
What narrative is that, Wick? What narrative is that?
You'd have to read the article. Basically, he's saying that if you've, I can read the article for you if you'd like. If you've been reading any news about wildfires this summer from Canada to Europe to Maui, you'll surely get the impression that they are mostly the result of climate change. Here's the AP, and here's the PBS NewsHour, New York Times, Bloomberg gives a bunch of quotes, bunch of headlines. I'm a climate scientist, and while climate change is an important factor affecting wildfires over many parts of the world, it isn't close to the only factor that deserves our sole focus. So why does the press focus so intently on climate change as a root cause? Because of the same reason I just did in an academic paper about wildfires in Nature, one of the world's most prestigious journals. It fits the simple storyline that rewards the person telling it. The paper I just published, Climate Warming Increases Extreme Daily, Wildfire Growth Risk in California, focus exclusively on how climate change has affected extreme wildfire behavior. I knew not to try to quantify key aspects other than climate change in my research because it would dilute the story that prestigious journals like Nature and its rival, Science, want to tell. So again, this is a problem.
Yeah, wildfires are super interesting because there's like a lot of different reasons that led to being as bad as it is, including like not doing controlled burns and not doing proper maintenance, provinces cutting budgets to firefighting. Like it was a mess of a whole bunch of things in Canada that caused that. Climate change is definitely a factor, but it's a mess of a lot of things.
Portland, hold on, let me address it. You're asking like this is the one article that I can give you more if you'd like. How many would you like? Would you need 10, 100? How many before you say, okay, I should take this seriously? Because whatever I give you, I promise you, Portland, you're just going to say, oh, that's not enough, I need more. Right? This is what people do all the time.
69. I need 69 because it's a
great
funny number.
The
Exactly,
sexy
yeah.
number.
Hey, LeMayo.
If you don't have...
But
So this
no.
is
Taking on articles.
okay. So this is a
Not true.
significant problem. This is a significant problem
Wait,
that's existed in
let
academia.
me in here.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I don't think enacting punitive measures towards somebody in a professional field, making easily falsifiable claims, has a slope. Where the slope comes in, I would agree with this, is if we're like firing people for bigotry. I think then that becomes much more vague, and then I could see why you would be worried about that one.
Sure, but at least we've moved to, right? It's not just getting fired, it's people shutting up so they don't get fired, right? It's fear of repercussion.
You know what
Right,
I think? I think the person who misrepresented information on a climate study, that maybe this should be reviewed for that, because that's pretty bad practice.
Well, that is
That's
a
harming the
common
reputation of the organization that they work for.
that is a common
Yeah, but-
issue in academia, and it's a common issue in academia because of how academic funding for research operates. Right, like quite often, the funding for research comes from private sources, or like this person was saying, they're looking at getting published in particular journals, which tend to publish articles which push a particular line, and that comes down to like questioning the journal, right? But I would say in a lot of academic contexts, there is a real motivation to question what is established, right? To question the narrative, because you don't make waves as an academic without bringing something new to the table. And if you're just literally repeating what everybody else says, then you're not gonna be a successful academic, right? You have to have a different take on something, on things. So these things do tend to counterbalance each other to a certain degree.
It's also,
Go
I
ahead.
don't think that example you gave shows you why there's something inherently wrong with like with a review process for the way people behave outside their job, because it seems like this person who fucked about with their study on climate change, like it seems to be that either the people they work for are just like demanding like bad results, or someone's like not doing their job properly. It would be like, I don't think that
You don't
shows
see
you an
how
inherent problem with a review
how
process.
certain standards or review standards might lead to behaviors which cause people to do their job than they otherwise would.
Well,
They
I think if it
could,
shows,
but then that's not an inherent problem, right?
I think it
because-
depends on what it applies to.
Well, I'm not
right?
against regulation in general, right? I think regulation can be very good. I think
Because
regulating
if for
opinions is the problem.
So if, for example, going back to my example of a teacher saying, "Oh, I believe black people are inferior and have reduced capacity for learning," right? Like, if it like has a chilling effect on people expressing those kinds of opinions while in teaching, I'm fine with that. I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's
Yeah, I
very
think-
reasonable. Yeah.
The example they gave in the Jordan Peterson case was that it was based on the precedent of a couple of nurses who went public and said that they were registered nurses, but told people not to use masks or to get vaccines, and they
Right.
were, I think they were disciplined or fired for that. So, again, it's like when you're representing an organization, and how do you become a registered nurse? Well, you get a certain set of education, don't you? Why would So the point if the qualification is contingent on you having a certain education and knowing certain things and abiding by different standards, I don't see why you should keep that certification as soon as you stop using those standards that got you the thing in the first place, you know?
It's the slippery slope. The slippery slope that turns up from what you're arguing for, I would say, is a lot more fucking dangerous, right? Because what would happen then is you have a whole bunch of people who have gained these qualifications, who have a certification that affords a certain degree of reputation of knowledgeability in these subjects, saying a whole bunch of contradictory shit, promoting all kinds of insane snake oil treatments, etc. And then you completely undermine public trust in the profession of in the medical profession, and you open up people to engaging in much more harmful practices when it comes to their own personal health.
Isn't that a problem we already have, though,
that
where like we have stuff all over the place? Like we
I
got
am,
like
I
all
am
sorts
going
of
to end
information.
this open panel really
Okay.
quick. Not only because I'm hungry.
Because you lost.
I'm a loser. It's true. I'm a loser. If you want to see me lose more, you subscribe to this channel. You can like it.
I had such a good point there too.
Make your point, and then you'll
no,
be
I'm
our
just saying,
last
like,
word. You'll be our last
fine.
word before I send you all the
we
way.
already have like so much information and misinformation like knocking heads with itself like out in the world from people with like certification and stuff. That it feels weird to me to be like, oh no, all the truth comes from this organization. It's putting a lot of trust in like regulatory bodies to make sure we're only getting the correct information that I'm not comfortable with.
Hold on. People are
Exactly, Big Nick.
Boots is DMing me.
Redheaded Jordan B. Peterson.
The fascist has been in the
Okay,
fuck.
Lisa, you were demanded, so you will actually have the last word. Then we're gonna end the panel. Go ahead, last word, Lisa. What you got?
How are you? I was gonna tell you my evolution on pronouns.
On what?
If you're interested, pronouns.
Am I not?
Can you
hearing
hear
this
me?
right?
I don't know. Are you using
me-
your fucking old ass grammar phone to record this and play it back? What is going on?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Greetings from Earth.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, there we
sounds
go.
annoying,
You're
sounds
sounding
better.
a little bit clearer.
Okay, what you got for us, Lisa?
I was gonna say my evolution on pronouns. At first, I was like Lonerbox, but then I was like, I was like he, she, they, and it oughtn't to be that much more complicated. But like even before then, I was like, well, how do they get they when it's one person? But then I started to think, well, if you're both male and female, you're two people, so they's fine. But then I got to thinking about it, and my feeling on this is like you should respect a person's pronouns, whether you agree with them or not, or you don't understand them, because they obviously feel strong enough about it to like put it in their bio and various other things, and that's my feeling on it. And I have a friend named Violent Smoker, and I can never remember that person's pronouns to save my life, so I never call that person anything but that person.
I appreciate that respect, Lisa. Can I ask just one question before we wrap this up? If you, because I think this might help just like for you to understand why people use they, right? They is not just used for like multiple people. If you were in a shop and you saw that a bag had been left in the shop, and you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman's bag from looking at it, right? You don't know the gender of the person that this bag belongs to, and you brought it to the customer assistant. What would you say to them? You would say, someone left their bag here, right?
Yes.
So
yes, that's been colloquial English for years now.
So even longer, in fact, than you, right? But so the they, in terms of gender, is a person of undetermined or outside of the usual he, she gender, right?
Yes, ma'am.
True.
Okay,
And
beautiful.
I love your VTuber. I was just saying how how wonderful it is.
I am going to
Thank you so much.
forcibly and violently end this by sending you all away.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thanks for having me, Wick.
Bye.
Take care, Wick.
Bye. They like to talk. That's a good thing. They like to talk. That's a good thing, right? I think it's a good thing. Gang, it's been a pleasure. Been great. Big Nick, still in chat. Said you were going to give me money if I play Domin on stream. You give me a rate that you would pay, and I will tell you if I will accept that rate, and I will absolutely play it on stream for you. Play Domina. I have Domina. It's on Steam. I own it, right? So I would need $100 US. How long would I play? Talking an hour? 6 hours? 10 hours? 100 USD? I'll do 100 USD. I'll load it up right the hell now. I will put that thing on. What do I know? How much do you respect yourself? Not enough. Tell you what. Tomorrow's stream. Okay. I might be having you Dominion. I might not. If I do not, how about I play for 2 hours? I'll play a 2-hour set of Domina. I'll advertise it. Can you to make sure we're talking about the same game? I'm pretty sure it's the Roman gladiator game. Is that what it is? I think that's it. The Roman gladiator game where you train up some gladiators and they go and they fight. Contact dolphinbarn.com. Do you guys have a Discord? Discord's much easier for me. But I can email you certainly. And we will talk this out. But yeah, I'll play your game for $100. Are you the creator of the game? Are you affiliated with the game? How what's your relationship to this game? Oh, you're the dev. Cool. I enjoyed it back in the day. I played it a couple years ago, in fact. Been out a while. But okay, very cool. Yeah, I'll play it for $100. I'll advertise it. I'll tell people where they can find it. Etc. I will email you tonight, and you can give me the details of what you want. And we can make this happen. I will absolutely play your game for 2 hours for $100. Absolutely. So there's one thing happening really soon, gang, that I wanted to mention. I'm not gonna stay and watch it because I am hungry and I'm gonna go. Okay. But friend of the channel, Pixie. You guys remember Pixie? She is going to be on the Whatever podcast tonight, and she's going to be debating Candace Owens. On what? I am not sure. But if you want to watch Pixie debate Candace Owens, that is absolutely something you. I'm not sure who would be streaming that. I'd write into them. I saw Erudite was streaming it earlier, but I don't see her live now, so I don't know if she's still on. So in that case, let's raid. Oh, Domina isn't on Steam anymore? Can I still play it? Do I still have it on Steam? Hold on, let me check. Let me check before we do this. Let me make sure that I can still... Domina is right there. Install. I'll install it right now and make sure I can. They kicked it off of Steam? Why did they kick it off of Steam? Why is it off Steam? Hold on. Distracted. Yeah, I don't know why did they kick it off Steam? That's weird. That's wild to me that they would ban the game. I didn't see anything. Well, I mean, there's nothing I guess there's slavery in the game because all the gladiators are slaves. I'm trying to remember. I remember training up the gladiators, and you would buy the little things that they could train on. Like you could buy them like a training dummy or stone pits, and you would like cycle them out, and they would do their little exercises while they prepared for the fight. You would equip them, buy equipment. I'm trying to think of a reason that it would be like taken down from Steam. Because I played some horrific shit on Steam. I played some horrific stuff where you could genocide entire planets, right? I will absolutely Google it at some point. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know controversies very well. I don't follow the controversy stuff. I don't get really deep in, especially the gaming controversies. Like I don't know. Oh, and because you did some bigoted stuff or were accused of bigoted stuff, Big Nick. Maybe I'll have you on and talk about it. Would you be willing to talk about that on stream sometime? Because I am curious about that. If they canceled you enough to get you taken down from Twitter, or not Twitter, I'm Steam. If you did something so bad that you got taken off of Steam, or they accused you of doing something so bad of getting taken off of Steam, I'd be curious to what that is. Like, if a game dev murdered someone, I don't know if they'd take their game off Steam, would they? I can't see them doing that. That's weird. Okay, yeah, but I'd love to talk to you about it. I'll email you and we'll figure it out. We're gonna rate out. Who are we rating again? Remind me. Where are we going? Erudite, not so erudite? Okay, is she streaming right now? Yes, she is. Okay. Make sure you let her know that this is a hate raid, gang. So once you get there, spam those emotes. Thank you for the donos today. Appreciate the super chats. Appreciate the gift subs. Appreciate the bits. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I guess we're playing Domina tomorrow. I guess that's what's going to happen. But yeah, see you guys later.